Welcome in to our friends across the Atlantic, over in Iceland. Believe it or not, we've gone international, friends. We've gone to the beautiful land of green and not ice, the most classic prank in history. And we are so excited to do this for the Morten Andersen Fantasy Football League. We are the Yards Per Fantasy crew, bringing you guys another custom podcast, and this one's going to be fun. This league is hardcore. Not only are we super pumped that like we're doing this for a group of dudes in Iceland, like that's just badass in itself, but like this league, holy shit, you guys, this is awesome. So, first of all, I'm Zach. Everybody just calls me Schultzy in these parts, you know. And over here, if you're watching, above me is Hunter. To the caddy corner is Alex, and to my left, that would be the left. You know, the cameras in the reverse always messes me. That's my man Drew. We're gonna just go around and give you guys a few minutes on each team, and then afterwards, just kind of have some general banter as a group, maybe about it. After we get through every team, we're going to give you each like our one person we think's going to win, and then maybe like a sleeper team, a dark horse. And I guess with that, we're just going to kick it off, and I'm going to go first. And oh boy, so stupid Americans here, we're going to butcher these names. And I bet you that's you guys probably paid for that alone. Like, hey, we don't really care what these guys have to say about our football teams. Let's just get some Americans to try and say these names. And I'd be down for that too if I was you. First off, Bagoda Usos. That's what I'm rolling with. Because I hear in some notes that, where did it go? Here it is. This is the team that the league loves to hate and hates to love. Because of his banter, the league hates when he does well. And when he loses, he's called Lusos. So I think I got the pronunciation there. But you know what? We're rolling with it. Ooh, man. And then they call him Wusos when he's got a winning record. I love this. Horrible season in 2019. Stepped it back up in 2020 and won. So he knows what it's like to have that glory. And last season, had to win in the final regular season game to make the playoffs, put his giant ball sack on the table when he sold his best players who were injured or on bye to guarantee a victory. Sadly, he lost by 1.3 and ended in the toilet bowl. That sounds like Lusos, am I right? Anyways, my first question here is, I got your roster. The people are dying to know, did you auto draft? And if you didn't, bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out for you, because we got no quarterbacks and we got no tight ends. But there's a but. There's always a but. We're just going to go to running back because obviously can't talk about quarterbacks. And you got Christian McCaffrey. So wham, bam. Thank you, man, because the Niners offense is going to roll again. They're going to score a bajillion points. He's going to score a bajillion touchdowns. You already saw it. There was talk. Do you guys remember when he first got traded and people were there was a legit debate about if the Niners were going to give CMC the work he deserves and what he saw. That was just a silly debate to me. And Shanny also agreed because he ran the wheels off of McCaffrey when he could. And I don't see any reason he won't this year. Especially with how creative they are. And now you get that talent, another offseason to learn, which is not he super needs it, but it helps. CMC to the moon forever and always. Ramondre, love Ramondre this year. I'm not too concerned about Zeke coming into town. He didn't sign until the last week of camp or after the preseason started, whatever. I don't know. But if you have plans for a guy to be legitimately impactful in your team, you would have not waited till then to bring him in. So no concern about Ramondre. They showed last year that he's a 3-down back. He can run early down. He can take the passing load. He can block. This dude's just the whole package as a football player. And I expect his usage to be pretty awesome again. They just sold their whole freaking running back room either by trade or to waivers. So it's, yeah, he's going to have the opportunities again. The only concern for me would be like a tick down and some touchdown upside because of Zeke, but like whatever. I don't really think it's that bad. You also got Rachaad White. Very polarizing dude. And he depends where you draft him to me, to be honest, because early in the offseason, he was getting some super hype. And like in best ball drafts, people were drafting him way high. But I think he's kind of settled down to where his value is probably fair. A lot of people love the receiving upside here, which I do agree that there is receiving upside. He caught a good amount of passes as a rookie and has shown that he can. I just don't see the offense funneling targets to running backs the way that Tom Brady specifically funneled them to his guys, especially in like 4-minute, 2-minute offenses. Like Brady would just dump it to Lenny specifically, like instantly all the time. So there will be receiving work. I just don't think it's going to be as like, I don't know, as quite the magnitude as some people think. But once again, good I think he's fine for where he's being drafted. And around your running back room is Jaylen Warren, a guy I love, super efficient running back. He just hasn't gotten his time, but I think he's going to earn a little more playing time this year. And Najee is also a dude who has shown that my cat's knocking crap over. Tumble. Wow, she just threw me off there. Jaylen Warren. Okay. If there's Najee's been banged up before, and it's in a pretty good offense. The Steelers are always just a good team. They do run the ball a good amount. Warren has stepped right in and been that dude and been fine. So yeah, I like him, especially as a bench guy here. And that's your last running back. So we'll just talk about receivers real quick. I freaking love this room. I just wrote heart eyes emoji for your top 5 guys of Jalen Waddle, Christian Watson, Deontay Johnson, Jahan Dotson, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. That's your top 5, which leaves you with Treylon Burks as a 6, which even in like a redraft, like him as your 6 is wild. So you're really deep here at wide receiver, really strong. Jalen Waddle, God, he is incredible. Like he's one of the most electric players I've watched come in and just like for it to just translate instant, like his acceleration, explosiveness. He's just so much fun to watch. And I don't want to like this. None of this is to detriment Waddle as a player, but he gets a huge boost in the scheme, but also a dude named Tyreek lining up on the other side. So fantasy wise, Jalen to the moon, because this offense, as long as Tua is healthy, this offense is going to score with the best of them. Number 2, Christian Watson. I'm like, I waver on him, but I think I'm finally landed to where I'm in. I wasn't like super in early in the offseason, but I just trust LaFleur now that I'm like, I don't know, gotten through the process. I've read some about how like LaFleur himself was hamstrung by Rodgers because Rodgers just wouldn't do what he didn't want to do. So like there were times where Rodgers would just go out there and just call his own plays and not even care. So LaFleur comes from that McVay tree that everybody loves and that has seen a ton of success. So I mean, I think you give him a dude that athletic as Watson is. I mean, you already saw it in glimpses last year. Give him a whole, once again, another offseason, but LaFleur himself creating for this dude, I think is going to be pretty electric. Deontay, target machine, that he is not going anywhere, and he's going to score touchdowns. Like, you've probably heard it a million times, but the touchdown luck for him, or lack thereof, like, it's just not repeatable. He's too good of a receiver. He gets himself open. He gets like 150 targets a year. Fire away. And he's a flex for you. That's badass. Which brings me to Jahan Dotson, a personal favorite of mine. He was one of my favorite players coming out last year. I remember watching a Penn State game that I had bet on, and he just like took it over, and I just fell in love. Like, it was the catch radius. It was the yards after the catch. I mean, just a ball player. He can make tough catches. He's a great route runner. He is the type of receiver who helps his quarterback. And Sam Howell might be pretty good, but he also might not be. And I really, really love Dotson's game, especially how it'll help a quarterback. I expect him to get a ton of targets this year. I think he'll outproduce McLaurin. He saw a lot of red zone targets as a rookie, and was successful in converting those into touchdowns. Love Jahan Dotson. JSN, I'm not super concerned about the injury. He's already practicing again. Seahawks, I think, are going to score a lot of points. They were really good on offense last year, sneakily. And I think people are still sleeping on the offense. Like, Geno is still going to have that team rolling. I think for real football purposes, the dual running backs there hopefully will keep them both fresh. So yeah, I think the functionality of the Seahawks offense is just going to be really good still. So no concerns with JSN. And Treylon, you got him as your number 6, I said, which is incredible. My one concern here is he's been banged up a lot. He's in a run first offense, and he doesn't have like a great quarterback. However, there is a path here to where he is like a solid redraft player this year. It's not a bank I'm putting my money in, but like, the path is there. You got Nico and Alan Lazard, who are both, once again, solid redraft options for this year, but you're going to have to cut up 2 of the bottom 3 receivers here, Treylon, Nico, or Lazard. You're going to have to cut 2 of them. That's just how it is. You got to fill out for quarterback and tight end on the waivers. And from there, you got the Bills defense, which should be solid with them getting Von Miller back. And they're just a good-ass team who's going to have leads and get into sack situations. And sacks are good for fantasy. And that about wraps up here. Anyone got anything on this team?
I think if they can somehow pick up a decent quarterback and tight end, this team could be a contender.
Or any quarterback at tight end.
Yeah, right.
I was checking that out with because I noticed a couple of my teams did not have defenses either. So just checking the waiver wires, there's some good quarterbacks available. I saw Cousins was available, Anthony Richardson, Deshaun Watson. I mean, you have your pick of the litter with quarterbacks who probably should have gotten drafted, but.
And yeah, scanning through the rosters really quickly on this other tab, a lot of people didn't take backups, which is great for you. So pause this podcast, go pick up a quarterback, steal your friends' phones, and throw them in that lake that I saw in the video, so you can get your quarterback first.
Yeah, or so I was going to say the receivers. He has so many good receivers that, I mean, he could also package a couple of them for. Well, how many teams even have a backup quarterback? I guess. Well, there's like 2, 3. That may not even be worth it to trade. Then never mind. I was going to say could trade a couple of them for a quarterback, but yeah, probably is better off.
Redraft trading is tough too.
Yeah, it is,
because there's just so many more teams fighting and like more teams viable to actually win. So it makes trading harder because the only like real instances where it makes sense is like, hey, I've got a bunch of receivers and you have a bunch of running backs. Let's swap one. You know, that's about like for me the only real kind of scenarios that make sense in a redraft.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Drew was saying, if you look at the waiver wire, Deshaun Watson, Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, Jared Goff, Kenny Pickett, Matthew Stafford, Derek Carr. You shouldn't have a problem. You should be able to pick up a quarterback. No problem. This team's going to be really good.
Yeah.
Maybe
I mean,
maybe
Dalton
he just played
Schultz
4D chess.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe
Yeah.
he knew what he was doing.
I mean, Schultz is
But
a
not-
pretty decent starting tight end. He's on the waivers too.
Yep.
Gerald Everett. Yeah, there's some guys.
Yep. Dulcich, Laporta, Jawan Johnson.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
you get the extra picks and then get to kind of wait out a little bit of time to see which of the guys maybe you want to drop.
Yeah, that's the only thing that didn't really make sense is they drafted a few days before the season.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you had drafted a month ago and pulled this strategy, that would have been really smart. So yeah, who wants to go next?
I can go take one of my teams. I guess just also if we're going on their league rosters, they're next up. But I got the Alftanis Presidents. I'm sure again I butchered that, but yeah. So it says in the notes that Alexander's the team owner. They call him El Presidente, the president, the man that everyone loves and nobody hates. Total sweetheart who loves the Cardinals and Kyler Murray's, and of course last year's reigning champion. You know, I will say from a trash talk perspective, it's a little disappointing when someone like that wins because they're just too nice. You know, it's just like you can't really talk trash. It's more fun when someone wins that you can talk lots of trash to. But congrats either way on the championship. You know, he's followed it up with a pretty strong team this year as well. You know, just I guess we'll start at quarterback. Trevor Lawrence. I know Zach. Yep, Zach loves that pick for sure. Yeah, it's a pretty good starting quarterback for sure. Definitely in the upper like top 8 or so, and didn't draft a backup, which again, it's smart. You don't need to. And also, I'd like to say that I love that they do not have kickers in this league. I've been trying to get my league to do that forever, but they just are stuck on 1F kickers. We have love there's no kickers and only 4
The
bench
Morten
spots.
Andersen league doesn't have kickers.
Yeah, that is a little right.
Oh snap!
I actually just realized that. Yeah.
That's so disrespectful.
Morten Andersen would not be proud.
Well, other than that, I think it's still would honor him. Sorry. Sorry about that. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence, really good quarterback. Don't have to say much else there. Running backs look pretty decent, at least the starting running backs. He's got Tony Pollard, who I love Pollard, one of my favorite picks in the second round, pretty much all offseason. Tried to get in my home draft and couldn't, unfortunately, but doesn't matter now. Yeah, Pollard's really awesome. I think that, I mean, he really doesn't have any competition for snaps. He's not going to be a, 95% of the touches kind of guy or anything, but, it doesn't have to be because he's so efficient that he just, anytime that he gets the ball, he's a threat to break off a big play. And it's a pretty good offense. So he's going to have a lot of scoring opportunities. I mean, not really scared of any of those backups. And the fact that Zeke didn't come back and they don't really have any other, goal line back per se, I think that bodes really well for him. Losing Kellen Moore, though, might hurt a little bit. Curious how that will play out. Khalil Herbert, I do like Herbert. The main issue with him is he's not really going to catch passes, but he's still on a run-first offense. He's the lead back in a run-first offense, and he's going to get a lot of carries. It's just more of a matter of he's going to have to be pretty efficient on those carries. So he's not going to catch many passes. I think the Bears' offense as a whole will be okay this year. So, I mean, he'll get some touchdown chances. I don't think they're going to be like top 5 or anything crazy like that. Yeah, as number 2 running back, that's pretty good considering that looks like he only took Pollard through the first, 7 or 8 rounds, I guess that would have been. Yeah. And then the 2 backup running backs, Zeke and Jerick McKinnon. McKinnon's pretty fine, solid floor. He'll occasionally break off like a long play or something, but he has the pass catching that provides a good floor. He's going to get maybe a few carries a game, but again, his role is solidified. He's playing with Patrick Mahomes. He's pretty good bench running back. And then Zeke, I won't lie, I think Zeke's kind of washed at this point, but if he can just sneak in every now and then for a touchdown or two, even if it's like 10 carries for 20 yards, but he gets a touchdown, like that's good enough for your flex for a couple weeks, right? And if something does happen to Ramondre, he probably would get a decent amount of work. Again, probably wouldn't be very efficient, but volume is pretty nice. So yeah, pretty decent running backs, I'll say. Pollard is really, really excited about Pollard. The receivers here are very nice. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the Sun God, I love him. He's also one of my favorite picks in the second round. The alpha on Detroit, no other than Gibbs, not really much target competition, at least for the first 6 games or so until Williams comes back. And even then, they play completely different roles, so it's not like he's going to take too much of his work. But yeah, I love Amon-Ra. Keenan Allen looks like you got him in the 4th round, which is pretty good. I won't lie, I don't love Keenan Allen, but let me say I don't love him because I don't think he has like a huge ceiling, but he does provide a very safe floor, and that's really what you care more about in a managed league. You don't care about the ceiling quite as much. But yeah, Kellen Moore going there, and just the offense in general looks really fun to watch. So he definitely would give you a pretty good safe option each week. And then Deebo Samuel. Actually, I guess Deebo would have gone. No, probably looks like Keenan went the 3rd and Deebo went the 4th. Yeah, that'd be right. Yeah, Deebo kind of the opposite of Keenan. Like he's not going to give a ton of volume, but he's going to be super efficient when he does get those touches. Just so many mouths to feed at San Francisco, but he'll get like 5 points one week and then 35 the next. You just never know. So a little risky, but definitely a very good player. And then Courtland Sutton is a 4, especially with that Jerry Jeudy injury and the Tim Patrick injury and all the injuries that have ailed that receiving core. He's in line for a lot of work, at least early on until Jeudy gets back. So that's a pretty good pick as well. And then Michael Thomas, kind of polarizing. He's barely even played the past few years. Like if he does actually play, then yeah, that's a really good pick. But again, it's a really big if because yeah, he can just never stay healthy. It seems like, but I think he can still, if he can stay healthy, he can definitely pay off that price tag. And then Alec Pierce to round it off, kind of a boomer bust with him. He's kind of like a big home run threat and rookie quarterback who's not the most accurate and who's going to be a run first or at least run preferring quarterback. He's probably good. He's good to get you a couple of spike week here and there, but obviously your 6 receivers not someone you really have to rely on. So receivers as a whole, I think, look really good. And then to round it off with tight end, we got Darren Waller. I've been pretty high on Waller for most of the offseason. I don't know if he should be going quite as high as some of the hype he's been getting. I mean, I've seen him go like in the 40s lately in some drafts, which I think is like pretty steep. But I mean, he is like by far and away the best target on the Giants for sure. And Dana seems to love him in camp and preseason and everything. So he definitely is a good starting tight end for sure. I mean, probably definitely top 5 tight end for fantasy. And then the very last thing, not the defense really matters that much, but I would probably drop Patriots defense before this week because they play the Eagles and not going to have very sack opportunities against the Eagles offensive line, in my opinion. Probably, I mean, I haven't looked at the waiver wire for the defenses. Probably if I could find a couple better ones. Let's see. The Saints play the Titans. I would definitely take the Saints against the Titans offensive line. Their offensive line is oof. Commanders against the Cardinals. I would probably drop the Patriots for one of those defenses. But yeah, it's a really good team, though. I like it a lot. Do you guys have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I can't get behind Khalil Herbert in round 7. Too soon for me.
Oh, do you go in round 7? Okay, I guess. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I thought he went in round 8. Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's a decent team. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. I like the wide receivers on this team. Love Tony Pollard. Zeke on the bench, not a huge fan of that. If I'm going to have running backs on the bench, I really want somebody with a little more upside than Zeke at this point.
Yeah. Especially
in this league with the waiver wires. So Zeke is still replaceable on this waiver wire.
Yeah, I love Amon-Ra as well. I mean, we always talk about him on these podcasts. Just target city, holy crap. And I love Keenan. He's the same type of player. He's just so dependable. Gets himself open real quick. And Alex has been real hard on driving down the QJ train lately. And I'm on board too. I'm not a huge Quentin Johnson fan this year. But I think the fact that he's not opening up as wide receiver 3 is he undraftable in redraft at this point? I mean, at least borderline.
Depends on how deep the league is,
Right. But a league like this,
I would say so. Yeah, in a league like this, with only
right, we're
13
like,
spots.
Where we're looking at some of these guys on the bottom end of wide receiver, you're looking at guys like Sky Moore and Donovan People-Jones, and in that like level of guy, I don't know, like a guy like QJ, give me a guy who's going to start. That was a little tangent, but it was all that to say I love Keenan Allen. Herbert clearly has the chemistry there, and Allen is just, I feel like he's been doing it for 15 years, but he's been doing it for as many years at least as Phillip Rivers has kids.
It's a long time.
Yeah, exactly. And Waller, I've come around on a lot as well. But like you said, the draft price might be starting to get a little too rich.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy with
like
the 6th round.
Yeah, like 6th or 7th was a lot better. I mean, just because in managed, I really prefer to have one of the top tight ends just because, it could be such a big difference between if you have Darren Waller and someone else has just looking at a couple of these tight ends, like having, I don't know, Tyler Higbee. Like that could be a huge difference in any given week, just for example. But it is a little steep at this point.
Yeah, I think that was my only thing was Waller maybe a little early, but it's fine depending on who else was there in round 6. I like Alex said, I like the receivers in this one. That's typically what I'll focus on more when I draft, is especially in redraft, is getting more of those top end receivers. I think you nailed it. Receptions with St. Brown and Keenan Allen. That's a great 1-2 punch at receiver. And I think Lawrence is going to have a big year. I'm surprised Schultz said nothing about Lawrence.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. What the hell?
Honestly,
like you have a shrine behind you, Schultz. I do. It's all Lawrence.
The guys in my home league make fun of me and call it my Hey Arnold, the shrine Helga has of Hey Arnold in her closet. But yeah, Trevor, it's because I could talk forever, but he's gonna take another leap. He took obviously a huge leap in the middle of a season. Like, we just don't see the type of leap quarterbacks take like that in season. And he did it off like the bye week happened, and mentally he's flipped a switch. It was over. He's entering his 2nd year in the Doug Peterson system that turned Carson Wentz into a fucking MVP. So he added Calvin. Yeah, he's going to go off.
How high do you think Amon Ra can get this year? Wide receiver 5, wide receiver 3, 1. What do you think?
Full PPR, top 3. I could do it. It's because of the volume, and he's trustworthy. His touchdown luck last year was just stupid, as how many times he got tackled like inside the 5. In a full PPR, he could push top 3, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially with Kupp hurt now too, and Chase.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah. Burrow misses any time, then that's another player down. Yeah, I could see top 3.
Yeah, if he gets the touchdown luck, if that changes for him. I think he was 8th in red zone targets last year, so it's not like they're not targeting him down there. Mm-hmm. He just had to deal with Jamal Williams at the 1 yard line.
Exactly.
Just bad luck in his favor.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, there have been reports at camp and just offseason in general. They're going to try to throw to him deep a little more because, I mean, last year he really wasn't a target deep as much. And I realize it's not his primary skill set, but he's more than capable of it.
He can do it. He can absolutely do it.
They just really didn't feel the need to use him like that last year.
Oh yeah, his ADOT last year was like 6.7, and his rate on beating man was like 8th in the league or something like that, real high. So it like clearly showed that like as a scheme and an offense. They're like, you get open, we'll give you it instantly. Like, and it works.
Yeah. I think he could be the 2021 version of Cooper Kupp. I think that's his ceiling.
I'm in for
Pretty
that.
lucky.
I could see it. All right.
All right. You want me to go next?
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
All right. All right. I don't know how to say this. It's the Lager Dollar Legion of Doom. They had the fourth slot in the draft. This guy has the least knowledge of the NFL and is famous for his laziness. So I hope we can help you. In the draft villa that they rent out, he is the only one that refuses to help cook and clean. He sits in his bedroom the whole day sleeping and listening to fantasy football podcasts. Hopefully he's got our shows on there. Last year, he had a really good team since his cousin, who is also in this league, drafted for him. He probably doesn't know the difference between a running back and a tight end, but they love him through his faults as he owns up to them eventually. He's called Luxury Anton in the group because he only wants the best and he refuses to help with the cooking or the cleaning. They mentioned that twice here. That must really irritate them.
Yeah.
Start doing some work, man. Help out. He is always first into bed on draft weekend and the last one out. He sleeps and he sleeps. Let's get to his roster. I think he drafted his own team this year, hopefully.
Oh, man, that's funny.
It's good. Dak Prescott at his quarterback. I think he had a good end to the season last year. It's 6 top 12 weeks of the last 9 games. He's got to clean up those interception issues. But he adds a dynamic second wide receiver option that the team was missing last year by bringing in Brandon Cooks. He's my QB9 for 2023. You got him in round 10. I'm pretty happy with that. Running back, Nick Chubb. I really love Nick Chubb this year, but I cannot get behind drafting him at the 104
Yes.
like you did here. He's more of like an early second round guy for me. Maybe late first round. I'm okay with it, but not at the 104. With that said, it might work out okay. He's a workhorse and what should be a pretty good offense. Kareem Hunt's gone, which is going to open up some targets for him, despite the addition of Pierre Strong. I think Chubb can have the best year of his career. Josh Jacobs, he's my RB8 this year. He led the NFL in rushing last year, but he touched the ball almost 400 times, and he missed all of training camp and preseason. So I'm a little bit worried that he's not going to be able to hold up for another season with that level of workload, especially after missing the summer. We've seen guys hold out like that before and come back and they pull a hamstring in week 1 or week 2, week 3. You can stay in shape working out on your own, but there's a difference between in shape and football shape, and it's hard to replicate that football stuff when you're working on your own away from the team. DeAndre Swift. I've kind of gone all over the place with DeAndre Swift this year. I can't really figure out how I feel about him. He's my RB31. Is kind of where I've kind of ended the summer with him. He's been far more efficient than he gets credit for. He was number 2 in yards per touch, top 5 in yards per route. With that said, I do think he's going to be in like a full-blown committee with both Kenneth Gainwell and Rashad Penny. I think all 3 of those guys could struggle to be consistent producers in fantasy football. Elijah Mitchell, one of the few elite handcuff running backs. He can also provide some standalone value. And then we get to wide receiver, DJ Moore. He's wide receiver 1 on this team. He's my wide receiver 23. So we don't have a high-end wide receiver 1 on this team. Still a little bit of a lower volume passing offense, but they should definitely see an uptick from their passing totals from last year. I think Moore is going to be a big part of that. He just gives Justin Fields that true number 1 real-life wide receiver who commands volumes, makes plays after the catch. I like DJ Moore, but I'd be happier with him as like my wide receiver 2. All right, so we got Drake London. I love Drake London. From like a long-term perspective, I like Drake London. Not so much in a redraft. I mean, the peripheral metrics for him from his rookie season were really good, but a lot of questions at quarterback. Still have a run-centric offense with other talented weapons like Pitts and Bijan in the passing game. I really haven't drafted much of Drake London this year. We got Tyler Lockett, who I still believe can put up a solid wide receiver 2 season. He's finished as a wide receiver 16, 13, 8, 16, and 13 over the last 5 years. So I think there is enough juice for at least one more really productive season, despite the addition of Jackson Smith and Jigba and the fact that he's 31 years old now. I have Lockett as my wide receiver 25. Jordan Addison, the rookie. I love Jordan Addison. I think he's going to have a really productive rookie season. I can easily see him finishing as a top 30 wide receiver. I have him ranked as my wide receiver 32. Then we get to Brandon Cooks, who I talked about for a second with Dak Prescott. I love him for Dak Prescott, but I also love Dak Prescott for Brandon Cooks. The Prescott-Brandon Cooks stack is my most drafted stack on Underdog this year, and it's really not even close. So I love that you've got both of those guys on this team. Cooks has had at least 1,000 receiving yards with every single team that he's played for. I expect he'll do the same with the Cowboys. He's been the wide receiver 22 or better in fantasy points per game in 7 of his 10 seasons. I think he's still got it. Then we got Darnell Mooney. He's my wide receiver 50. I think he's going to have a solid year as a field stretcher. As long as Justin Fields takes that next step as a passer, which I think he can, and I think he will. Then we get the tight end, Mark Andrews, easy, top target in an offense that I expect to see a significant jump in passing volume. But either way, Mark Andrews is a stud. As far as this team as a whole, this is a solid team. But basically, I think waiving your first-round pick by taking Chubb and not taking a Jamar Chase or a Tyreek Hill or a Christian McCaffrey in round 1 could really be what holds this team back from being a true contender. What do you guys think about this team?
Yeah, I think just lots of reaches. Like I said, I mean, I love Chubb, but like, I don't think you had to take him at 4. I mean, based on how the draft played out, possibly he could have fallen to the second round. Honestly,
I think he could have possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been
a bit of a fall, but
yeah. But you could have gotten a number of other running backs in the second round.
Exactly. DJ Moore, I mean, he's okay, but I don't like him as my 1 for sure. Andrews, though, I do love. I like you said, Dak and Brandon Cooks, like both those guys.
Yeah.
Lockett's really solid. He's always consistent. And then Addison off the bench, yeah, I love that. But not a big Swift guy or more. Jacobs is okay. It just, lots of the picks just don't seem like you got very good value for them based on where they normally go, I would say.
Well, he's probably sleeping all day because he's lazy. He didn't prepare very well. So.
Yeah.
Clearly, I mean, the kind of fumbled the bag. It's funny. So here's my prediction on how this played out. My guy was like, "Yo, I'm gonna draft this year, guys. You know, I'm gonna finally step it up. I'm gonna be active." And he was there, and he's just really started fumbling the bag these first few rounds. He's like, "Fuck it, I'm going to bed." Auto draft kicks in, racks up Brandon Cooks, Jordan Addison. You know, he's just getting him some solid depth. The back end of the draft goes well because my guy was sleeping.
You can't auto draft because they're doing it in person. They weren't doing it.
Ah,
they were manually doing it.
All right.
I like your theory.
I'm going to stick to it.
Basically, his first round pick is what should have been a second round pick. His second round pick is what should have been his third round pick.
Yeah.
With Jacobs in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
It could work out.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
There's a chance.
All right, that does it here. Kick it off, Drew. I haven't heard much from you yet, buddy. What do you got?
Yeah, so I have Ari's team, the Deplorables. It says here in the notes that Ari is the only Trump supporter in Iceland and won the league in 2019. Last season, he broke his finger on draft weekend, which was a bad omen. The season went horribly. He is famous for his weak banter, so he usually relies on finding typing errors in the group chat after getting burned. He is called the Oracle in this league because of his incredible ability to guess the outcome of head-to-head matchups in the league. So I think for starters, we need to start switching over your predictions and translate that into trash talking. Because if you win the league in the not in the last 5 years, but you have to trash talk a little bit after you get a championship. But all right, let's go over Ari's team. Only drafted one quarterback, and it was a good one. Patrick Mahomes. Not a whole lot to say. I mean, he's a stud. Will be this year. There should be no reason he won't be.
Mm-hmm.
My only complaint is looking over the draft results. You took him in the second round, which is not terrible value, maybe a little bit of a reach, but seeing quarterbacks who went later in the draft may have been the only thing you could nitpick about it. But again, when you're in the second round, you get a stud.
Should have been
like
targeting
Mahomes.
Joe Burrow. He took Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
Yep, that was my biggest thing because Burrow went, I believe he went in round 5. I'll have to double check, but I think he went, right around round 5 for Burrow. So you could have a sexy Cincinnati stack there with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. But only quarterback on the roster, which when you take Mahomes, there's no need for another one. It was pretty apparent that you took the 0 RB route, which I'm a fan of. Maybe in a league size with this, when you only have 13 roster spots and Kamara being suspended doesn't go in an IR spot, that's kind of difficult to do with 0 RB. Took him in the 5th round, and then Cam Akers is the RB2. I like Akers. I think he has legit RB1 upside, especially if Cooper Kupp is out. I think that offense has to go through someone, and Matthew Stafford coming off of a broken back is going to need some help. So the veterans.
Well, I think the big plus there for Stafford, they've been playing together a little bit, so he probably at least knows who Cam Akers is.
He's not making friends. So, it's essentially Tyler Higbee and Cam Akers are his only friends on the team when Kupp's out. So you at least have 50% of his friends on the team. I think he could have some maybe more receiving upside. He doesn't really have competition, I don't think. Kyron Williams, 5th round pick last year. Zach Evans, a 6th round pick this year. I'm not worried about them getting too involved. I don't think they would be a team to go out and sign one of those Leonard Fournettes or Kareem Hunts. So I think Akers should get a good chunk of the work, which is good for your first top RB for the next 3 weeks at least. Currently, you have Antonio Gibson in the flex spot. He'll be splitting time with Robinson. I think they've been pretty consistent so far in the preseason in terms of splitting reps from what I've seen. He should be fine. There's always talk about him. I feel like the last couple of years, Gibson's always been talked about if he's going to get more work heading into the season, and it just figures out he doesn't. Doesn't help when your head coach doesn't really know who Sam Howell is until he comes in the last week of the regular season. That's kind of a red flag from a coaching standpoint. But so maybe he'll realize in week 1 who Antonio Gibson is, and it'll
how much worse does it make it that his wife had to tell him that Sam Howell might be good?
Yeah,
it explains why he's never used Gibson. He doesn't get the guys on the team.
Heineke had to go up and tell him, you should probably start this guy the last week of the season. We're out of the playoffs, which he didn't know they didn't know they were going to be out of the playoffs either.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's right.
Can't convince me that was some grand gesture by Taylor Heineke. He was probably like, I'm not going out there to die.
Yeah.
So yeah, Gibson will be your RB2 for a couple weeks. I haven't checked his schedule. I know his first game's against Arizona. That should be great for him. Yeah, absolutely. And then Rashad Penny, Tyler Allgeier on your bench, and Kareem Hunt. I think your bench running backs are pretty solid. Penny could be splitting time with Swift. We just talked about him. I think kind of lukewarm on Swift for all of us. Tyler Allgeier, I'm not really sold on. I think he was going to be one of the suggestions I would have to drop for a defense later on. Because I think Kareem Hunt, I think he could sign somewhere maybe in the next few weeks or I guess this week before the season started and get maybe some work kind of sprinkled in there a little bit, but depth of the running back, not bad. I mean, it was pretty apparent you went 0 RB, but you at least, from rounds 5 through 13, you grab 6 of them. So that's kind of the goal when you take 0 RB is you load up on them after you get 2 stud receivers. And going with your receivers, that's exactly what you did. 5th pick, we talked about him already. Jamar Chase, thought he would go higher than the 5th pick, but you got a stud. And then you got his teammate with T. Higgins later. I don't know if he can get you top 12 production, but in the 3rd round, you got a very solid wide receiver too. Teammates with Chase. So if for some reason Chase were to go down, Higgins should step in and be an alpha wide receiver 1, I would think. But my biggest criticism of this team is your 4th round pick was Juju Smith-Schuster.
So bad.
If this was circa 2017, maybe that might be a good pick. But in the 4th round for Juju, I just checked before. I think Fantasy Pros has him like outside the top 100 right now. So that's major stretch for Juju. I guess the hope
pick ahead of DJ Moore, by the way.
Oh my God.
He went
Awful.
before DJ Moore, and then Brandon Ayuk and Drake London were picked in between his 5th round pick when he took Kamara. So
And Jahmyr Gibbs.
The dude's got
yeah, Brees Hall.
Dude's got a knee of a 90-year-old guy. He's not even going to make it through the season.
So yeah, not a fan of that one. That's a rough start, but he is your flex. Hopefully you get some production out of Gabe Davis or Jacoby Myers, your other 2 receivers on the team. I mean, both are probably, they definitely are their wide receiver 2s in their respective offenses. I'm not sure if they'll be the second on the team in targets for either offense, but they do provide good depth on the bench. I mean, it's the Cincinnati show. It's Chase and Higgins. You're going to hope that they're going to be studs and have PPR to lead your group. And then tight end Kyle Pitts for Carolina. Hopefully he bounces back this year. In year 3, we saw big numbers from him in his rookie year. Kind of took a step back last year. We mentioned it with Drake London. It's a run-heavy offense, and they just got their bell cow back with Bijan Robinson. So there is a little concern, but I would think it's going to be – I mean, he's going to be probably a mid-round tight end. He's going to be, tight end 5, tight end 8, somewhere in that range. So when you take him in the 6th or in the 7th round, that's fine value. I have no problem with that at all. No defense for this team. So yeah, I would suggest dropping, even Kareem Hunt until he signs somewhere. Some of the defenses I wrote down that were available. Washington gets Arizona week 1. We talked about the Saints. They have Tennessee, Jacksonville's Indianapolis, and then Denver. They host Las Vegas. So definitely some good waiver wire value out there for the defenses. But overall, nailed the first 2 picks, I think. Maybe a little high on Mahomes, but he's a safe pick in the 2nd round. Some work to do in the middle rounds and later on. But what do you guys think about this team?
I think that not taking the defense and taking the shot at Hunt to see if he signs with this first week, like since there was such a short amount of time between the draft and the season, like we talked about with the first team, it was kind of a weird strategy to overdraft the receivers like that. But here with Hunt, let's say tomorrow he signs in Kansas City, and all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, great pick. Let's drop Tyler Algier now. So yeah, I think that was a decent move as far as waiting to make that call. I agree with the overall draft strategy here is odd, just because it's like you clearly entered the draft wanting Chase and Higgins stack. Like, I don't think you're sitting on the clock in round 3 and being like, yeah, I guess I'll stack those 2. Like, to me, that was a planned thing. So taking Mahomes and sandwiching them was odd. Like at that point, you need to go all the way and take Burrow, which leads you right into the Juju conversation, because you could have taken a really good player in round 2 and then Burrow in 4.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And if you're going to draft 0 RB, I really think you got to cross off Kamara.
Mm-hmm.
If he's going to be missing those first 3 weeks, you're already making yourself weak at running back voluntarily, which I'm fine with. I love the 0 RB strategy this year. But then you're also going to make yourself even weaker by your RB1 missing the first 3 games of the season.
Yeah,
so that would be, other than Juju, that's my biggest criticism.
Yeah, I mean, I won't lie. I don't really think it's that good of a team. I mean, I completely agree. If you're going to a running back, you can't take someone like Kamara, or he didn't take Javonte Williams, but someone like that who you don't know if they're going to play week 1 or they're suspended or whatever. And then just taking 2 guys like Chase and Higgins, who they're both great in their own individual right, but taking them together without Burrow, you just need some weird specific outcomes to happen for that to really work out in your favor. And then the Juju though, that's so bad. It might be one of the worst picks of the draft, I won't lie.
It's got to be, absolutely. Drop him for a defense, damn.
Yeah.
All right. I guess that kicks it back to me. I'm going to take my second team as the very easy to pronounce Gainesville Grinders. So I hope, or I don't know, this may or not be an Urban Meyer reference, because for me, Jags fan, last year and this year, my redraft team names are now Urban Meyer's Grinders, thanks to one infamous night in a Cincinnati bar. So I saw the Gainesville Grinders and I was like, shit, I'm taking this one. If this has anything to do with Urban Meyer's love for young females and grinding on them, bravo, because great minds think alike. I just hope that's what this is, and I'm going to pretend that is what it is, because Urban Meyer's a sleazeball, and the fact that my team names are Urban Meyer's Grinders and I've got Gainesville's Grinders, this is just too much, and I love it. So
did you see
Urban
the
Meyer
clip of him
sucks.
yesterday?
Oh, I saw the clip of him
Mm-hmm.
yesterday. Like,
He's
the
always
dude,
up to something.
he's never not gonna dirtbag. Like, there's no shame in it.
I mean, even with the cameras on you, man, like, come on.
Oh, so the good news here is the talent on this team far exceeds Urban Meyer's NFL coaching ability, because you got Jalen Hurts, and aside from Mahomes, this is the dude to me. I mean, Allen as well. So I'll throw those 3 are your big, like, your pinnacle of quarterback for fantasy and a 1 QB especially.
Yeah.
Those 3 are going to put you the gap ahead of everybody else so far, and it's just like a set it and forget it. Like, if you have one of those 3 in a 1 QB, you enter every single week on paper, like, let's just say 15 points ahead, just because they're just a fucking wagon. They're going to steamroll you. They're not going to stop, and they're going to score 50 points if they can, because that's just what they do, and they don't care. Hurts gets a ton of rushes in the red zone. I don't need to wax poetic about why Jalen Hurts is great. This is a solid 1-2 punch at running back. My only issue here is the fact that you took Eckler 101. I don't understand that one. To me, even if you're going to take running back, you got to go for CMC. Eckler 101's a head scratcher, but to me it's JJ or Chase, and I'm a JJ guy, so I would have taken JJ. But you got JJ, or I'm sorry, you don't got JJ. You got Brees Hall as your second, and all reports seem great as far as his recovery. He just got Dalvin cooked, and it's remains to be seen, what that realistically means as far as usage. Brees's talent is going to get on the field no matter what. Dalvin is a little aging. I mean, he's aging for a running back, and he's still good. He's still going to be a great player, but Brees has got to be on the field. Like when you have a dude that's just that special, you have to have him on the field. So he's going to get his. He's going to find his way on the field. No concerns there. We were just talking about Gibby. This team has Brian Robinson. And Brian Robinson, did you guys know he got shot? Wildest thing, I've never heard that story before. Apparently he got shot last year. Nobody's ever told me that.
Wow, that's breaking news to me.
Yeah, the most breaking news in the world. Still made it back before Michael Thomas. Is Brian Robinson the least sexy fantasy pick there is? Because I don't like him as a player, but they're gonna give him 20 carries a game. He's gonna score some touchdowns, and he's just gonna get the work. So it's like I don't want Brian Robinson on my team, to be honest. But where he's getting drafted, and if you need a running back, I'm doing it. Just be like I said, I don't like the player. I like the offense, the offensive opportunity, and the workload he's going to get. And in this case, I like the stubbornness of the coach. And your last one is Kenneth Gainwell. Very polarizing dude, but like Alex mentioned, I think it's going to be a three-way monster there. And it's just going to be one of those ones. The Eagles are tough because if something's working for them, they're going to make you stop before they move on. So let's say they can't defend this one play that A.J. Brown's getting 15 yards on every time. Well, A.J. Brown's about to have 12 catches for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that's just how that team rolls. So for a three-headed backfield, it's just really dicey to me because you're relying on injuries for any of those guys to make the others relevant. And if they all stay healthy all year, you might get a couple pop weeks out of each guy versus the rest of them just being kind of, middle or just below average. And that's really not super ideal, especially if they're only going to give you 2 pop weeks the whole year. And Gainwell, I don't know, he's got the receiving capability, but so does Swift.
Yeah.
It's just one of those ones I have no idea what to expect here. My concern with Gainwell is he's the guy that coaching staff has had eyes on the most, but his opportunities haven't significantly increased to reflect that, which is a concern to me because the coaching staff has seen him more than the other guys, and they're still electing to try and find new ways to get this to happen.
He did outsnap Miles Sanders in the Super Bowl, so that gives me a little bit of hope there.
Absolutely. I think my one thing with that, though, I think game script comes into a little bit of play there because they were playing the Chiefs. You just know you got to be high flying, but there is significance there, and they're going to find themselves in a lot of games like that. So, I mean, it's not like that is an outlier. That still counts.
If I'm drafting an Eagles running back, though, it is going to be Gainwell. He's the cheapest one of them all. I think that's kind of how I approach.
Yeah, he's definitely.
I think that's kind of how I've decided to approach this backfield.
Like if I had to pick one who I think is going to score the most points this year, I'll pick Swift. But if it's who I'm drafting at cost, it's probably Gainwell.
Yeah, I think you could make a case for all 3 of them, which gives us a headache as fantasy gamers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But overall, and you got Jeff Wilson on our IR. That was a nice draft, and then swap him to IR. It's a solid player to stash. You can pick someone else up in the meantime, and he's in an offense with a great running scheme, scores a bunch of points. Mostert has shown that he is going to not probably play more than half the season. Has he played more than like 8 or 9 games in a while? I don't think he has.
He always gets hurt at some point,
Mhm.
but he's pretty solid when he does get hurt.
And then the other guy
does
is tiny little Devon Achane.
I don't know.
He's already hurt.
I was going to say he's already getting banged up.
Yeah.
So Jeff Wilson, I'm down for that stash. I think this is a nice running back room overall, except for the fact that you slipped up at the top there. Wide receivers love CeeDee Lamb. I'm expecting monster year out of CeeDee again. The dude, to me, he's the reverse Velus Jones. Velus Jones is the 25-year-old rookie, and CeeDee Lamb is the 24-year-old who's somehow been in the league for 10 years already.
Okay, but shame on the rest of this league by letting CeeDee Lamb get to pick 24.
I was about to say, I think that might be the
Amazing
steal of the
value.
draft.
Yeah, it's really nice.
That is something else. And so he came out with round 2-3 turn with Lamb and Hurts, and that's which is greatly making up for not taking Justin Jefferson. But could you imagine if he started JJ, CeeDee Lamb, and Hurts?
Beautiful.
Oof.
Or even if he was going to take a running back, CMC instead of Eckler. Like,
right.
If he had to take definitely JJ would have been the pick though for me.
But hey, we could be wrong, so you never know. I'm not super into DeAndre as my wide receiver 2. Once again, I mentioned earlier, it's a run-first offense, not the best quarterback. I love DeAndre as a player. I think what he's going to do for the Titans offense for real life implications is way more than what he is going to be for fantasy this year. I just think the way that passing offense works, it's not designed to like funnel to one guy like that. It's all like, design off the play action and scheming guys open. It's not you've got the quarterback to go drop dots to your wide receiver kind of offense. And then that gives us over to number 3 at Mike Evans, who I like Chris Godwin way more for the Bucs this year. I think we might see our first sub 1,000 yard season out of Evans, unfortunately. I don't think Baker is trash, but he's not great, and he's going to be like average to like above average at like on his good best days. But I think with Baker, he stylistically will play way better with Godwin, in the quick hits, the zone, the Godwin sitting in zones, getting himself open and eating in that way versus like Baker throwing deep or like being precise on a contested catch ball or a back shoulder or a pylon throw or something like that. I think the way Baker plays as a quarterback is going to help Godwin a ton more than Evans.
Yeah, and the overall volume in the passing game is not going to be there to make up for that either, like it was with Brady.
Yeah, they are not throwing 650 balls again. That's for sure.
I think he had like a 19% target share last year, which is okay, but it's not what not gonna propel you to the seasons that we're used to seeing from Mike Evans.
Yeah, I mean,
with the volume being down, that is not going to be anywhere close to what we want from Evans.
And let's be real, if he didn't have that Week 17 massive game, he'd probably be getting drafted at least a round or 2 later now. I mean, lots of his production for that one game, which, I mean,
I think it was 35% of his fantasy production came in 2 games. Half of his touchdown came in 1 game.
Dude, the only thing
Brady,
the burn in my retinas moment from last season is that touchdown drop he had where he was literally wide open. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. It was at Carolina.
The first Panthers game, yeah.
And it hits his hands, and it was like he decided to just throw it again like it was a hot potato. and then he almost ran it down and caught it again. Oh Lord. But yeah, so unfortunately for him, Tom Brady's gone. And I think Evans, not that it matters in redraft purpose, but he's out that door after this year, I'm pretty sure. Which gets us to Elijah Moore. Great upside pick, but huge question marks. Nobody's going to doubt the upside, the athleticism. He's got a quarterback who can help him in that aspect. I think Deshaun is another quarterback who is going to help in that. Shit, you know what? I don't even want to try and pump this guy up. I hate him so much. He really looks uncomfortable in the pocket still, which that's like the one thing I noticed last year when he got back was like he just would bail on the pocket really quick. And I noticed it in the preseason some too, which honestly might help Elijah Moore. I think if there's a scramble drill guy on this team, it's going to be him as far as just being able to get out there and make crap happen and get himself open backyard style. But the offense is going to scheme him up with some end arounds and some useful creative stuff. This is just a huge boomer bust pick. And I don't feel strong enough either way to plant my flag on him. So for like personal draft strategies, it's like a guy I'm not drafting just because like for the type of player he is for fantasy this year, like I need conviction on a guy like that if I'm going to draft him. And it's just not there for me. And I very well could be wrong. And if I am wrong, you got yourself flipping awesome wide receiver 4. Which gets you to Rashad Bateman for your 5, which I'm not a Bateman guy like at all, but you've got a starting wide receiver as your wide receiver 5. Like that's good. A lot of there are people who are going to draft guys who are going to get a lot less usage than Bateman should see this year. So I have no issues with the fact that he's on your bench here. And you've got an extra spot. Oh, sorry, you got Dallas Goedert up here at tight end. He's just going to be one of those middle of the pack running or tight ends. I'm fine with him because he gets drafted with those like middle of the pack tight ends, but he's not getting drafted at the top of the middle tight ends. Like the top end of those middle group, like I'm avoiding in redraft. But when you start pecking them down, that's when I start to feel comfortable slotting into tight end. So, and I think Goddard fits that perfectly. Once again, a high scoring offense, you get to match him with Hurts. So I'm totally cool with that. Which the last thing here, Eagles defense, they're gonna fuck. That's all there is. Defensive line is just ridiculous here, and they get Jalen Carter. I don't think the league's ready for Jalen Carter. He's gonna be terrifying. I heard someone on a podcast say, I think last offseason, which really like changed my perspective on valuing defensive line players, and Hunter will agree with me here. Defensive tackle, I'm almost think that might be more important than like a pure badass edge guy. If you've got the Aaron Donald or the Chris Jones, that is showing to be more impactful than a straight up edge dominator because you cannot scheme for the guy who will blow up the entire play in 0.7 seconds. There is nothing anyone in the league can do to stop it. You can scheme to stop or slow down rushers and to at least do things to help. When Aaron Donald blows up a play like he can, there's nothing. And I think Jalen Carter has some of that in him. And so, yeah, they're going to get a bunch of sacks, fantasy points. And you've got yourself an empty bench spot for really whatever you want. You did a good job balancing the roster. And so you can pretty much go out to the waivers and just take whoever you like because you've got numbers everywhere to where I don't think you need to force it at any position. So just go pick up whoever you want, really. And other than that, he had a couple, like I said, the miscue, I think, with Eckler, but I don't know. I think this is a really strong team. I like this one.
Yeah, it's a really good team. I like the Eagles stacks. I mean, if you're going to go all in on a team, might as well make it the Eagles. I like CeeDee Lamb as your wide receiver 1. Dallas Goedert, tight end. Your running backs. I know we suggested you should have, taken Jefferson at 1 instead of Eckler, but elite running back room with Eckler, and if Breece Hall is healthy and he can get ahead of Cooks, which I think he can by week 6 or so. A lot of upside with this team.
Okay, one note. I forgot to read the notes about this owner. This is going to make you guys laugh because king of the regular season, loves beating teams in the regular season, but doesn't have the balls to complete on the big stage. Urban Meyer. So, wow, the stars really did align. Gainesville Grinders grinding their way to the playoffs, to the moon, to be honest. I don't know what's going to stop him.
Yeah, I think it's a really good team. Evans and Robinson, not too big a fan of, but yeah, I still think it's really good for sure. Especially once Breece is fully healthy and reaching his max potential.
Schultz, you mentioned for Evans, you prefer Godwin in that offense. I just looked at the draft recap. Godwin went the pick before.
Oh no!
Yeah,
that sucks.
Yeah, so I don't know where you all have Evans ranked, but I did look at he was wide receiver 32 taken in this league. So I know we've kind of mentioned that there have been some reaches at points in Juju going early, CD falling, stuff like that happening. But I don't know, wide receiver 32. I think that's not terrible for Evans, I wouldn't think.
Right, and he's got him at his wide receiver 3. So I mean, yeah, it's ADP wise, good catch on that, because yeah, it's not terrible. I think the thing that I like the most about this team, like Alex mentioned, leaning heavily into that Eagle stack, is I think top to bottom, you did a great job of drafting quality and depth together, but also not like making any one catastrophic mistake. Like we've mentioned some things we may have done differently, or like something we weren't the biggest fan of, but there were no Jujus in this draft. So yeah, this is just a very strong team.
Yeah, I think it's one of the few teams that's going to be contending at the end.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and go to my next one then. So I'm definitely going to not pronounce this right, but it's Reykjavik Zigzigis. I know that's terrible, but
nailed it.
Yeah, I'm sure that. Yeah. Stefan is the owner, so they say they call him the witch or the voodoo priest because he puts curses on teams and players that often come true, and he often curses or jinxes himself when he says, "No, it's over. I've already lost," but then he ends up getting the win. So a little bit of the reverse jinx, I guess. He can make chicken salad out of chicken shit. He's a member, though, of the elite club with another guy who I'll talk about his team later, but the elite club thinks they're above the rules. They were even charged with collusion because of an artificial transaction a couple years ago. They cheated the league's market for each other's benefit. The collusion case is called Kirkgate because it was Christian Kirk. And yeah, I read some of that. It looked pretty spicy, pretty interesting. But aside from the history, though, the team itself, I guess we can talk about that. Tua at quarterback, that's pretty solid. If the bench was deeper, I would have said maybe get a second quarterback, but with only 4 bench spots, it's kind of tough to do. But I think he's perfectly fine. Obviously, there's the injury risk, but I think when he's healthy, he's probably a top 10, at least pushing a top 10 fantasy quarterback. So I don't really see any issues there. Now, I can't find which round he was drafted in, but I assume it wasn't too egregious of a reach or anything like that.
He's in the 10th
Uh,
round.
Oh,
Tua
10th
is
round.
the-
Okay, yeah. 10th round is really
Even
good.
in
Tua, yeah.
redraft, he's the one quarterback I am 100% rostering a backup for, though.
That's fair. Yeah.
I don't think you need to in
Because
this league, though.
what?
You don't need to in this league.
That
There are
I
a bunch
guess
of
with,
good ones on the waivers, yeah.
with the fact that the bench is so thin, that's probably true.
I think that makes him the perfect quarterback for this type of league. Because you got the risk
Yeah.
of the concussions, but it's not that big of a risk if you can go pick up Kirk Cousins or Deshaun Watson,
Mm-hmm.
Daniel
And-
Jones.
Foreshadow, but to match him with Tyreek is like that's like creme de la
Yeah.
creme stack
Yeah.
right there.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then looking at running backs, on paper, Mixon and Pierce is a pretty good starter running back duo. But then you look and see that Mixon was taken in the second round, 6th pick of the second round, which would be 19, right? Which is just way too early for Mixon. I mean, I think Mixon's fine. Like, as a talent at this point, he's not that good, but he's in a good situation, not really much competition, good offense. But, like, I don't think he's worth a 2nd round pick. I mean, that was last year's price. But he's okay, I guess. It's just a big reach. And then Damian Pierce, pretty solid. The thing is, the offense, I just have some concerns with them, but he is a kind of the opposite of Mixon. Not a great situation, but he's just a beast of an individual talent. So maybe the talent just wins out there. I mean, the offense honestly will probably be better than last year, and he still was pretty solid last year. Got him in the 4th, which, I mean, that's maybe slightly early, but that's pretty standard for the most part, I think. And then Dalvin Cook as the 3rd running back. I don't really care for Dalvin. I think at this point, I mean, I won't say he's washed. Like, he's still a pretty solid, capable running back in a timeshare or just straight backup. He can even start for some teams, but I don't really see much there. I mean, he had so many teams, if they wanted to sign him, they could have, if they thought he was still good enough. But he decided to take a part-time job on the Jets. So that just tells me not many teams valued him at this point, which
Dude, he lost
Yes, I
juice. You
blame
could
him.
tell last year.
yeah, he did. And then get him at the 7th, I think that's kind of a reach too. Like, I mean, I guess that's where he goes. But for me personally, I wouldn't take him until like the 90s or so, like in the 8th round. But it's not a horrible pick. I don't love it. Now, Jamal Williams, though, that one, round 9, I guess it's not that bad. But Williams, someone who definitely does not have very much individual talent. Now, relative to other players, of course, anyone who's in the NFL is very talented, yes, but he just gets all his fantasy points from his teammates falling down to the 1, then him punching it in, which that's good for him, for fantasy owners, but, like, I don't know how much that's sustainable for this year. And now, early on, while Kamara's out, yeah, he'll definitely get a lot more work, but once he gets back, and then once Condre Miller gets healthy, I don't really see much of a role for him because I think Miller's a better individual talent. Kamara is obviously a better pass catcher, so I don't know. And then Zamir White as a 5th running back. At this point, earlier on in the draft, before Jacobs committed to sign him back, that would have been a better pick. But at this point, it's just you're just hoping that Jacobs gets hurt for that to have any value. But I guess it's fine holding for now. And then moving on to the receivers. The receivers are pretty nice. You got Tyreek Hill, obviously a stud. I wouldn't be surprised if he finished like number 1 overall receiver. I mean, I'd be a little bit of a push, but definitely like top 5. He should finish top 5, probably top 3. Love Tyreek, got the stack with Tua. Calvin Ridley, he's a beast. I know, obviously, Zach is saying a lot about that, but don't want to spend another 3 hours here, so don't want to let him get on his soapbox. I know he took a year off, but I'm in the camp that I think he's going to maybe not quite be as good as he was, but still good enough to pay off the price he's going at now. Just with a really good quarterback, really good offense. And then Scary Terry, the toe is a little concerning because if it's toes can kind of linger a little bit, and it sounds like he may not play week 1, but that might be better for him long term just to rest up fully. But once he's healthy, he's a stud. He would definitely be starting in the flex. Quentin Justin, we already kind of talked about him, so I won't spend too much time on him. I think you could probably still hold on to him, but if you dropped him, I wouldn't blame you. Adam Thielen, I think you can drop him. I think he's kind of garbage at this point. His teammate on the waiver wire right now, DJ Chark, I would instantly drop Thielen for Chark right now. But yeah, he's washed at this point. I think doesn't really provide much. Well, I mean, I'll say that Chark is. I know he's battling an injury, so if it ends up like Chark is out for a couple games, then I guess yeah. But I'm not a big Thielen guy. And then to cap it off at tight end, T.J. Hawkinson, just a beast. He's going to get so much volume. He got a ton last year. Jordan Addison will probably take a little bit of volume away, but it's not like they're going to play the same position or anything. He's still up there as one of the best tight ends. I wouldn't be surprised if he jumped Andrews to finish as the second best tight end this year. Yeah, he's a stud. The Vikings are going to have to pass it a ton, especially, Madison, we can talk about him later. He's fine, but they don't have any great running game to rely on, so they're probably going to be passing it a lot. So just based on pure volume, and he's a pretty good player, obviously. So yeah, it's a good team. And then Jets defense, Jets have a really good defense, so probably could start them most weeks, except week 1 they play the Bills. That might be a little tough, but yeah, that's all I got for them. Do you guys have anything else?
Yeah, going back to Hawkinson, I really like getting him in the 6th round.
Yeah, great value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you also mentioned Joe Mixon a little early in the 2nd round. I agree with that. He's more of like a late 3rd, early 4th guy at best is where I would take him. Definitely reach there. This is a decent team. Definitely some work to do.
Yeah.
I'm out on Madison. I mean, he went early, round 5. He could have gotten James Conner, Rashad White, James Cook, Cam Akers. These are all running backs I'm higher on than Madison. Excuse me. I just don't see.
Team. Yeah, Madison's not on this team.
I just briefly mentioned.
Oh, really? Oh my God! I just heard you talking about him, and
yeah, that's my bad. Yeah.
Well, I just started running with a bit that doesn't matter. Save that because someone else. I'll save that bit for later.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think feels like 3 out of the 4 guys on the bench could probably be cut, even if it's a shallower league. I have no interest in Zamir White after Jacobs is back. Thielen could be the wide receiver 1 Carolina, but what does that look like? I don't think it's worth starting or even rostering at this point. And then we talked about Quentin Johnson. It's just if he's a wide receiver 4 in Los Angeles, then no.
Yeah, I think you can cut him, but he drafted him in the 7th round, I think, on this draft. 8th round.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, yeah,
not a good pick there.
That's not good. Could have had.
That sucks too because the rest of this team is badass.
I love Tua going in 10. And for this one.
Yeah, he got some really good. I mean, Tua is a good value. Hawkins is a good value, but also just some bad reaches too to kind of counteract those values.
Right, this is for me, looking at this team and the draft board, this slot with how the draft fell could have built a true powerhouse. Now, I think this team is going to still be good and be probably a contender, but looking at a couple of the tweaks, as we talked it through, this team, could have really been something.
Yep. Am I up? All right. So we got the Trout Hood Twats drafted from the 3 slots. The manager of this team, his name is Husky. He's an incredible pilot, but he's horrible at fantasy football. In 3 seasons, he has lost twice and is getting, or I think that means he finished last twice, because they make them wear an Antonio Brown Raiders jersey, whoever finishes last in the league. And this guy's getting quite comfortable in the Antonio Brown Raiders jersey. Now,
this is a top level punishment, though.
Yeah, it is. One of the other guys in this league, his name is Renard, I believe is how you pronounce it. They call him the Con Man. And according to the commissioner, Renard is Husky's daddy. And Husky always lets Renard take advantage of him by handing him gold for cow shit. He's also called Dumbski in the league after all his trades with Renard, his daddy.
He's giving, yeah, he's just giving preference to dad and hope dad treats him well. Actually, this is sounding like it's an abusive relationship.
A little bit.
Yeah, I don't think we should. We're victim shaming here, to be honest. We need to be pointing the talks to Renard here.
We'll get to Renard. All right, quarterback on this team. I got Josh Allen. He's the locked-in QB3. We talked about that earlier. High pass volume offense. Got the rushing upside. He's my quarterback 3 this year. Running back, we got J.K. Dobbins. He's finally healthy. Hopefully, maybe. Might catch more passes in this Todd Monken offense than he has in the past, or than any running back in the Baltimore offense has in the past. Only competition behind him is Justice Hill and Gus Edwards, so he should get a pretty heavy share of the workload. He's my RB19. And then here's Alexander Madison. I made a video about the worst pick in every round. Alexander Madison was my pick for the 5th round. He's a career backup who has fallen into a starting job. It's been 3 years since he's been efficient. Most carries he's ever had in the season was 134. He's going to be asked to double that this year. He's being drafted strictly for situation, and I tend to avoid those types of players because it really works out. He's my RB24. So, Zach, if you want to do your speech on Alexander Madison, you're up.
Yeah, it's just I prefer a lot of the backs being drafted behind him. Also, we're playing in an NFL today where guys as talented as like Ramondre Stevenson, Travis Etienne, I don't know, just like pick any of the like second tier running backs in the league. We live in an NFL where those guys aren't talented enough to capture 3-down rolls anymore. And you're telling me Alexander Madison is? That's all I got on that. There's just no.
Yeah. There are plenty of other backs you could have taken with the same floor but a higher ceiling than Madison. Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams is a walking miracle. I don't know how he's ready to start the season, how he even played in preseason. However, I'm still a little skeptical that he's going to be back to complete form after a multi-ligament tear. I moved him up significantly, though, in my rankings. He's now up to RB23, which is much higher than where I had him earlier in August. Raheem Mostert might be one of the great steals in fantasy this year, though I think you got him right around where he should be at this point in round 8. Wide receiver, Justin Jefferson. This guy saved the day after somehow the guys with the first 2 picks passed on Justin Jefferson, finally takes him at the 103. Don't really have to say much about Justin Jefferson. He's a stud, easy top 2 wide receiver in fantasy, probably the one again.
Justin Jefferson is so good that somehow he probably knows that he just got drafted 3rd overall. And that it's such a travesty that, and it happens so rarely that he's allowed to be notified. Just think about like, hey, you got drafted 1st. He'd be getting blown up constantly. But no, you draft him 3rd. He maybe gets hit with one of those a month. I don't know. He fucking knows about you, brother. And I don't bet against JJ.
You think he's making a little list of all the guys drafted ahead of him? Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley had 2.
I love it. Yes. And then exactly their names. He might show up at that Lake Villa next year. Watch out.
He'll hand deliver that Antonio Brown jersey. Chris Olave. I love Olave in the 3rd round. He had a great rookie season, 1,000 yards, saw a ton of downfield targets. He was top 5 in deep targets, over 1,600 air yards. He was efficient as well, top 10 in yards per route, top 10 in yards per team pass attempt. He's a natural fit with Derek Carr. I have him ranked as wide receiver 10. Then we get to Marquise Brown. Should lead the Cardinals in targets by default. No more DeAndre Hopkins. Zach Ertz is coming off the ACL, and he's no spring chicken. And they're going to start either Clayton Tune, most likely, or Josh Dobbs at quarterback. Who knows if we ever see Kyler Murray again in a Cardinals uniform this year or ever, for that matter. And I'm not sure the quarterback situation is going to allow Marquise Brown to be Marquise Brown, like a downfield playmaker who's going to get you those splash plays. I don't know if they're going to have enough quality quarterback play for him to consistently get those types of targets.
I don't think they're going to have time to develop those types of routes either, to be honest.
Yeah, that too. Absolutely. He's going to have to be like rookie season Jalen Waddle with a low ADOT, ton of volume. I'm just not sure that's his game. But I have him ranked as wide receiver 28, which I think is respectable. I think it's right around consensus, maybe a little bit below. Marvin Mims is on the bench. I love Marvin Mims. I think he adds an explosive element to that Denver offense that was missing last year. He's a playmaker with 4.38 speed. He's great after the catch. And it sounds like Jerry Jeudy is going to miss like the first month or so of the season. So Mims is going to be leaned on in this offense right from week one. I have him as my wide receiver 41, and even that feels low. And then I think the other receivers on this team are just kind of roster churn guys. Van Jefferson, Romeo Dobbs, Jonathan Mingo. I'm not thrilled about having any of those guys in my roster. None of these guys are going to make or break your team. I'd probably drop them all, to be honest with you, for like high upside handcuff running backs.
You mean you're not in on Van Jefferson wide receiver 1 season?
Not quite. Not quite.
The only thing I got about that is if your offense is wide receiver 1 is Van Jefferson, I don't want to be buying fantasy pieces of that offense.
Right.
I agree.
Exactly.
Pains me to say, but actually no.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
Hey,
I completely
I
agree.
lived 10 years of it at least. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm comfortable dropping. Maybe you keep Jefferson to see if he's going to be starting the first couple of weeks until Kupp comes back. But the other two, Dobbs and Mingo, I'm going to drop those guys for one of these handcuff running backs that would actually make a difference in your starting lineup if they ever got the chance. Like their starter goes down, now you have them instead of going for that rush to the waiver wire where everybody's trying to get these guys. Why don't you just roster them? Nobody's ever rushing to the waiver wire to pick up Romeo Dobbs. That's just the way I build my teams. Jefferson, Dobbs, Mingo, they're a dime a dozen on the waiver wire, especially in these types of leagues. Tight end, Pat Freiermuth, top 10 tight end easily, I think. He's in an offense. I'm starting to believe in the Pittsburgh offense. It took me a little while to get there. I'm starting to believe in it. All the reports coming out of training camp have indicated that Kenny Pickett has taken the next step, and I'm buying it. I think it's true. I think it's happening. Freiermuth is my tight end 9. I think that's his floor. This is a solid team. If Dobbins, Madison, or Javonte Williams hit for you at running back, I think you really, really could be a contender. What do you guys think about this team?
Pickett, I'm in the same boat as you. I was not on board at all. But you know what? At this point, I just am going to put my faith in that organization and the coaching staff because Tomlin has never had a losing season. Yes, he had Big Ben forever, but he showed he can stay afloat with Mason Rudolph. What the other hell was the guy's the other
Ducker Hodges.
Duck
Hodges. There was another one that recently but yeah, it's like,
oh, Josh Dobbs.
Yeah. Like it's just, he's shown he can stay afloat with these random ass dudes who probably shouldn't even be in the league. And I'm in on Pickett, his development. I don't think he's going to ever be that dude, but I think he could be like a Kirk Cousins or something like that, and that's that's fine.
Yeah, I was low on Pickett coming into the summer. I think we talked about that on one of our first shows that we did. But just this last week or so, I've moved him up in the redraft rankings and in the dynasty rankings. I'm believing the hype, and that puts me all in on the Steelers offense.
I think this
I
is
don't
the
know
best
how you couldn't
start.
be, because there's just so many good skill pieces there.
Yeah, and he's going to have to throw the ball. They don't have a great defense.
Yeah, I
What were you
think
gonna
this
say?
is the
ahead.
best start out of any team we've talked about so far. The Jefferson at 3, Allen in the second round, Olave in the third. That's pretty solid.
Yeah, he's eating up all the value that everybody else fucked up on.
And then it seems like he loaded up at running backs with Dobbins. I'm like you all. I don't like Madison.
Yeah.
I like Javonte. I think if he's going to be healthy enough to play that offense with Sean Payton, they're gonna get plenty of opportunity. I know everyone's high on Samaje Perine. I'm not banking on a 29-year-old running back to come in and have a career year. So I think there's plenty of work to go around between both of them, and I think Javonte could really benefit from it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think part of the reason, I'm on this Perine train, but one of the reasons I like him is Peyton as a play caller, a coach, has proven that he can carry 2 viable fantasy running backs on a team.
I think if Javonte gets off to a slow start to the season, I think you're okay, because you got Raheem Mostert, who's going to get off to a hot start to the season before he gets hurt. Especially, I really like him a lot this week against the Chargers. I think he could have top 15 week against the Chargers in week 1. So I think you're starting him over Javonte, and just give Javonte a couple weeks to show us that he's fully healthy, and he's going to have the role that we need him to have, versus Samaje coming off that knee.
Alex, would you start Marvin Mims over Marquise Brown, given the quarterback situation in Arizona, and then Judy being out?
Man, it would be tempting. 100%, that's tempting. If I'm probably not in week
I was
one.
say this feels like the classic, like,
overthink it type of situation.
Yeah, like you just got to trust the rankings on that one, I feel like.
But man, am I tempted to do it. I'm definitely staring at my lineup for a minute on that one. Yeah.
Because wasn't the report out last week that there were only 4 receivers on the Broncos at one point? It was like Sutton, Mims, some other guy, and then Judy, who was hurt.
Some other guy.
Yeah.
Nobody knows this guy is.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so I love Mims. Love that you got him in round 13. I'm keeping him over Jefferson, Dobbs, Mingo, like we talked about earlier.
Cool.
Anything else on this team?
I think that probably wraps that one up. All right,
It's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, I will go with love this game Worm Army, Atlee's team. And Atlee is called the Worm because of his wormy ways. He consistently threatens to quit the league and says that this is his last dance, but he can't quit because of his love for the game. He won in 2021, but had a terrible year in 2022 and made a lot of stupid decisions.
This guy's Michael Jordan. He may not go down as like the GOAT, but threatening retirement, making stupid decisions, like gambling and playing golf and minor league baseball. Yeah, this guy's got Michael Jordan written all over him.
Better be careful. If you quit
Or
this
Antonio
league,
Brown.
there's a wait list. You're not getting back in.
Right. And
that's true. Don't you fuck around and find out, man.
So I looked up the record book last year, and Atlee went a nice 1-13.
Ooh.
Could have been worse.
And also, I'm not aware of this, but I believe he is the only person from Cleveland, Ohio in this league.
Ooh.
And I'm only saying that because if you look at his roster, I've never seen someone roster so many Cleveland Brown receivers in my life. I'm starting there because I have to. I was writing down this roster and I said, A, I didn't know Marquise Goodwin was on a team anymore. And B, why the hell are there 3 receivers from the Browns on one fantasy roster?
I gotta say, I've got respect for moving out of Cleveland to Iceland.
That was not in the notes. I'm just kind of assuming it based off the draft.
Okay. I ran with that.
Yeah, I have no idea if that's true or not, but we'll go with it.
I mean, hey, at this point, we've made a lot of implications about these guys. What's one more?
Exactly. So yeah, we'll stick with the order with quarterback. He has Rodgers and Russell Wilson. Rodgers in the 5th round. Wilson was in the 10th round. I think it's pretty rich for Rodgers. I think he was the 7th quarterback taken. No, sorry, the 8th quarterback taken in this draft. He was taken ahead of Justin Fields. I would have 100 times take Justin Fields over Rodgers in this one. And we kind of hit it on it already. I don't know about you guys. I have probably a handful of quarterbacks on the waiver wire who I would have over either of these 2 options. With Richardson, with
Absolutely.
Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins.
Deshaun Watson. Why didn't you draft Deshaun Watson? What the
For
hell?
real, got all those receivers.
You have 3 guys from Cleveland. You can't get the one guy to throw him the ball.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think Rodgers could have a big year. I love the connection with him and Garrett Wilson. I think essentially it's going to be like the 2020 and 2021 Packer days when he had Devontae and he has every other piece in that offense. Now you're just going to substitute in Garrett Wilson in the Devontae Adams role. In the 5th round, though, I think that's way too rich for Rodgers. But in a league like this, you definitely have options on the waiver wire if for some reason neither of these guys work out. Your 2nd pick was Derrick Henry. He's a bell cow back. I think age has to get up with him eventually, though. He's going to be in his – did he turn 30? Or is he – he's either in his late 20s or he just turned 30. I know he's a beast. He's a freak of an athlete, but still, all those hits he's taking, I think that's going to have to catch up on them eventually. But you get a bell cow back in the early 2nd round, so I can't fault you there. Kenneth Walker III in the 4th round. That's fine. I mean, I think Zach Charbonnet is going to have more of a role than what people are anticipating. They're both 2nd round picks. Charbonnet was more involved in the passing game in college. I think Walker, he's not undersized. He's bigger, but I believe he's like 5'9". So I'm a little more timid with that. I think he's had some injury issues as well. So again, he's as your RB2. I have no problem with that, and especially in round 4. Damian Harris is your flex RB3, taking him in the 6th round. I want no part of any Buffalo Bill running back. Every year since Josh Allen has been a stud, we keep hyping up these running backs, and there's opportunity to become an RB1 or a top end RB2. And if you want to be up in that range, you have to get touchdowns. And the only guy getting rushing touchdowns in Buffalo since he's came in has been Josh Allen. So I've
taken the stance that I don't want a Buffalo Bill that's not Allen or Diggs.
Mm-hmm.
Period. They've shown that offense hasn't shown that they're going to sustain another like for where the other pieces are being drafted. This offense has not shown that they can carry a 3rd option that's going to produce like people want or expect other players in that offense to.
Right. And yeah, especially right now, I think you're the backup behind James Cook. I think it's kind of what most indications have been. I think a lot of people have kind of hyped it up that Harris could be the goal line back, kind of like what we saw from Jamal Williams last year in Detroit, and just hopefully vulture a ton of 1-yard touchdowns. But I don't think that's enough to take him in the 6th round.
No, in the 6th round. No, absolutely not.
I think it's way too
I was
rich.
taking him back when he was in like the 12th, 13th round. No, in round 6.
Mm. And then your last running back, Devon Achane. We talked about him a little earlier. Undersized. That was kind of his concern coming into the draft process, and now he's hurt already before week 1. If he wasn't hurt, I would love it because it'd be him and Mostert competing for touches, and it seems like that whole backfield now in Miami cannot stay healthy. So they're probably going to be a spot to add in a Leonard Fournette, a Kareem Hunt, one of those two if they go down and are competing, or Jonathan Taylor. That trade could still happen. So yeah, not as strong or as deep as what I would hope to have for running backs for this team. But you are deep with Cleveland receivers, so that's a big plus if you're from Cleveland and you're a diehard.
It's something.
Yeah, it's something. Stephon Diggs in the first round, like Schulte said, that's a solid piece. You want pieces in Buffalo's offense, and he's the best one to have if you don't have Josh Allen. But Amari Cooper in the third, he's a fine wide receiver too. But for me, he's vanilla ice cream. I'm not going to get excited about Amari Cooper. I never have. At this point in his career, I never will. And that, I know it was middle of the season when Dak came back. That offense was bad when he came back. I think they had, was it 8 offensive touchdowns in his 6 games back, something like that. It was not pretty. I know they had one big game against Houston where they blew them out, but it was all special teams, all defensive touchdowns. I'm very skeptical of any part of Cleveland's offense this year. And yeah, Amari's no different. He could be a good value if him and Deshaun Watson hit it off. I'm not banking on it. I do like Michael Pittman in the flex. He's in a contract year. I know Richardson's going to run some or a lot. They have to throw it some. I'm not sold on Alec Pierce being the wide receiver 2 or Josh Downs. If it's going to throw it someone, it's going to be Pittman. I think he's due for a bounce back season. You got him in the 7th round. I think that's towards the end of the 7th round too. I think that's perfectly fine for your wide receiver 3. But then the rest of them, I have no idea what's going on. You have Chase Claypool, Marquise Goodwin, Donovan Peoples-Jones. I mean, I guess those are the wide receivers 3 and 4 in Cleveland, maybe. I kind of forgot Elijah Moore was there. So, yeah, you're looking at least wide receiver 3 and 4. And Claypool is in an offense that's not going to throw a lot. I wouldn't think they'll throw it more, but you have DJ Moore now. It's still going to be a lot of fields running. And Clay, I feel like Claypool's the odd man out in Chicago right now.
Yeah.
I wrote up Claypool as a guy I liked as like a deep best ball sleeper. And he was getting, at the time when I wrote him up, he was being drafted in like 15 or something like that.
Pick 200, something like that, yeah.
And there's not even 15 positional players in this league on a roster.
Yeah.
This guy just saw names that he knows on the draft board, and I'm going to take that guy.
Yeah, I mean, 1 in 13 might be doing it again this year. It's Evan Ingram at tight end. I think he'll be solid for Jacksonville. He's kind of like Freiermuth. I think he's in that range where he's probably top 9, top 8, top 9. He's going to be a safe option, but yeah, just a lot of questions at receiver, especially on the bench, and then quarterback play. I think it's probably the weakest we've had so far.
The problem with Rodgers for fantasy is you need like 2016 Aaron Rodgers isn't walking through that door, and like that's what's needed if you're going to be a quarterback who offers no rushing.
Yeah, extremely efficient. Yeah.
I would.
And for them to have the 2 backs who are probably going to vulture him a good amount. Yeah, I'm not in on him for fantasy.
And a good defense, so they're not going to be playing from behind. So they're just going to be handing it off to Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall in the second half of games. He plays slow. 5th round, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, that's almost as bad as Juju.
I'm going to throw this out there right now. If one of you guys needs to study this draft board and remember it for next year, because you can take advantage of this so hardcore if you just remember this. Like, remember the quarterback run, remember the running back run, take advantage of those. because we're talking about guys who are being pulled in the 4th, 5th, 6th rounds who have no business being there, but it's because there was a run on, let's say, running back right before, and someone just got scared and they just pulled a running back. I'm telling you, study this draft board, especially quarterbacks and running backs, those two specifically. I think if one of you does and remembers it heading into next year's draft, you could capitalize big time because of it.
Yeah, I would say one last thought is I would drop Rodgers and the entire bench, except I would keep Devon Chain, but I would drop the entire bench, Aaron Rodgers. I'd get a quarterback and probably another couple running backs or receivers for depth. Definitely make a lot of changes right off the gate, out of the gate.
Yep, I agree with that.
Um,
For the most respectable fantasy football league in Iceland, saw a lot of weird picks in this draft.
That's very true. But you know what? Maybe he'll just quit the league after this year because it maybe seems like the team's not going to be so hot.
Let that guy on
Got
the
him.
league list have a shot.
Which brings, I guess I'll take it to my last one. And that is the Swamp Ogres. And
It's a
over
great
here
name.
on our note sheet, I gotta find it here. Oh, see, on this says Swamp Monsters. In the ESPN, it says Ogres. And I'm going to Swamp Ogres because was just assuming this is a direct Shrek reference, and I love Shrek. So, Swamp Monsters, we're going for loves drafting running back handcuffs.
Yeah,
After he lost the toilet bowl, he had to wear the Antonio Brown jersey, and he threatened to quit the league if the members didn't stop calling him Gooey the Toilet. That's fantastic. Great nickname. I'm for that. I'm sorry. He has even become a little violent over this, so everyone hopes he never loses the toilet bowl again. I mean, that kind of maybe I'm kind of wondering if maybe putting on the Antonio Brown jersey, people start to like personify and some Antonio Brown energy.
Are there
Getting
secondhand
violent
effects
shit.
from wearing the jersey?
yeah.
This guy is the biggest what if only man in the world and claims he would have won the league last year if Usos would have made the playoffs. So, sounds like a whiny bitch who makes excuses. Got it. Heard. Man, that's Shrek would not be honored by that description. I gotta say, this is a detriment to Shrek, unfortunately. You drafted Joe Burrow at quarterback, which I think normally in a one quarterback I'd be down for. But since the fact he's got this lingering injury and the way the quarterback landscape is here, not a big fan. Like I said, had maybe studying past draft boards, people would have noted, I don't know, maybe the quarterbacks fell or, the good quarterbacks fell late like we saw here, like Cousins and crap like that. Maybe that's been a trend and you could have capitalized and not taken Burrow who has the injury or whatever.
Yeah.
But with that said, I still expect Burrow to be a very solid quarterback this year and just a very good offense. And so he should be fine. Went with some zero running back here, which I do like how it fell for you, where your top two are Miles Sanders and James Cook. I'm cool with Sanders. My problem with him, he just gets banged up a lot, which sucks. But I think for being the lead guy in Carolina, that will probably rely on him a decent amount. And it looks like they're probably going to do a good amount of like RPO kind of game with Bryce Young that he's familiar with in Philly. That worked well with his style. So I think that could be a nice pairing. James Cook, I'm not in on James Cook at round 6 value, I think is where we have him. Yeah. Not a huge fan there. I would have rather just taken another wide receiver. like Godwin or Lockett. But I still think James Cook is going to be a nice fantasy piece this year. I don't think he's going to be the true 3-down back, like a lot of people do. But like I said, I think he'll be a nice piece this year. And since you're going 0 running back, you drafted a dude who's going to start. He's going to get good playing time. Like that's what you want in a 0 running back pick. So like I'm cool with the James Cook pick, maybe just a little too rich. I love your top 2 receivers with Devontae Adams and Devonta Smith. That is just a badass combination to hit in rounds 2 and 3. I was not a Devonta Smith guy coming into the league. Even after his rookie season, I wasn't like super huge, but I was wrong. He's good. That guy can play. I think what impresses me the most about his game is his ability to like make a tough catch in coverage to like I thought he was just going to be a burner. I thought he was going to be a one-trick pony, and he's a football player. And you just my one concern would be his frame holding up to it. Because a lot of guys, like I said, who are like that fit the burner mold, and they don't get used in the way that you see him get used because they aren't talented like Devonta. But I've been completely wrong on him all the way up until this point. So yeah, round 3 is great. And I've mentioned it already. Eagles are just going to score a shitload of points, and those are the offenses you love to have pieces of. Wide receiver 3, though, is Tyler Boyd, and I'm not super huge there considering we're in a 12-team league. I think you could have done a better job getting your 3rd wide receiver because you went really deep at running back, which I skipped over those 2 dudes. But yeah. So your flexed. Wow, words. You are flexing David Montgomery and Charbonnet. Love Monty this year. Great 0 running back pick. He's going to get a lot of volume. He's going to have touchdowns. He's in a good offense. He can catch passes too. Like I think people just assume because Gibbs is in town that he's just going to not. And that's wrong. I'm sorry. That's just a wrong assumption. He is being drafted way too late. So I'm a huge fan of Monty this year and the fact that you were able to get him in a 0 running back build. Not super interested in Charbonnet for a redraft value. I think Walker's the guy to have, obviously. This year, I think Charbonnet is going to have some value. I just don't see how much standalone value he has without a Walker injury for redraft. But he's your running back 4, which makes it, pretty fine. But once again, I think you could have gone a little deeper at receiver here and knocked Charbonnet down the list of, maybe he wouldn't be your flex. Your last running back, Devin Singletary. I really like Singletary this year. He's another dude throughout his career. He's never been that dude. He's never been a stud, but he's always just fine. And when you're that late in a draft, and you're going to get a running back who is going to be in a timeshare, I don't expect Dameon Pierce to be getting 80% of the carries or anything. And then if he gets hurt, Singletary is going to slot himself into a 3-down role. So yeah, value-wise, love the Singletary value. But moving back to receiver, like I said, not the biggest fan of Tyler Boyd. I'm not the biggest fan of any of these bench receivers. I don't really like any of these guys. Well, I like Boyd. I don't like him as a wide receiver 3. I'm out on Kadarius Toney. Way too volatile for my blood. And even if he does pop, the Chiefs are still gonna. He's not Tyreek Hill, so they're still gonna spread it. Like, to me, the way people want Toney to pop is like they think if he does pop, he's gonna get usage like a Tyreek or something, which is silly. they're still going to flow through Kelsey, and other dudes in that offense are going to randomly hit. And I'm just not I'm just not in on Odell. He's just old now, bunch of knee injuries, hasn't scored more than like 6 touchdowns in like 6 years or something. So I don't know. I think you could have managed the back end of this draft a lot better. But the start was really promising, and there's still room in the waivers to drop some of these receivers and add some solid pieces. So overall, I think we're looking at a legit playoff contender here. And once again, I think it's a team that, it really could have taken off. Oh, and you know what? I completely forgot Travis Kelce. How could I? The set it and forget it fantasy football player. The positional value he puts you even over Mark Andrews is greater than any other number 1 to 2 in the league. And then the number like 1 to like number 5 gap is like 10 times bigger than any other position in the league. Ultimate cheat code. He produces like a top wide receiver, and you get to put him at tight end. He plays with Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I think you're right about the start of this draft is solid. Second half of the draft, not so much. I think probably 1 or 2 too many running backs in those first 8 picks. I would have been fine with Dave Montgomery as my RB2, and then not taking Charbonnet at least until a couple other rounds. And like you said, the bench guys, just not good.
Yeah,
not the guys I would want.
I think for the build, the 0 running back, if I had hit Monty as my running back 3, I would have then pivoted back to loading at receiver, and then added like a 4 and 5 running back deep.
Yeah, like round 9, round 10 is when you should have gone back to running back after that.
But like I said, I still think this is going to be a playoff team. Play the waivers right, and I think this one's got a shot.
Yeah, it's top heavy, and there's opportunities on the waiver wire in this league. So if you manage it correctly, absolutely.
Anyone else?
No, I think it's a good team. What is the word on Burrow? Is he going to be ready for week 1? Is that the assumption right now?
I'm pretty sure it's week 1. Yeah.
Okay. So when they cut Simeon, I took it as they think he's fine, because I think now that I'm saying this out loud, I'm realizing how obvious this is sounding. If Burrow wasn't ready, they would have carried both quarterbacks still, Browning and Simeon. But I think letting go of Simeon proves how comfortable they are, because I think if Burrow was legit going to maybe miss, they would have felt more comfortable rolling a veteran out there.
Yeah, he's one of the few guys that even after missing most of training camp and preseason, I'm still comfortable with he's going to be pretty much as usual self from week 1, week 2.
And luckily for him, he's not a Lamar, he's not a Fields, he's not an Allen, to where you say, oh shit, a calf injury, and you start to get real concerned about his rushing.
Yeah, I mean, would you guys consider, with the quarterbacks that are on this waiver wire, would you go and just play it safe in week 1 and play Deshaun Watson or Daniel Jones or Kirk Cousins over him?
That was kind of what I was asking, because I mean, you could get ahead. I mean, I think everyone looks at a guy like Anthony Richardson. I don't know if I'd play him week 1, but someone who has a ton of upside. Like, do you have that in this league? Kirk Cousins would be a great example too.
Yeah,
I'd pick up Kirk and play Kirk. He's playing the Bucs. That's a garbage secondary.
Yeah, I was just gonna look and see who those guys are playing. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I think if you can get a hold of Kirk, a move I'd make. I'd feel super confident dropping Beckham or Tony.
I would probably try to get Watson if I was going to. I mean, I would still think it's perfectly fine to play Burrow, but if there's some other
me too.
element that makes it seem like in doubt, then yeah, just drop like OBJ and then get Watson because it's the same game environment, just opposite team, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I still have Burrow ranked in my top 10 quarterbacks for week 1. I'm not that concerned about it.
Yeah. Well, anything else? Want to go to my last team?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll try to make it quick. I know it's been a long one.
Aren't they
So
all?
I got the Bermondsey St. Browns. Apparently, it's some kind of inside joke because he lives in London, and apparently that's something in London. I don't know much about London, so I will say that it's the St.
As
Browns.
the resident Jacksonville Jaguars fan, I know everything about London.
Oh yeah, I should have asked you. You're right. I don't know. Well, he's missing out. He doesn't have Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he's named the St. Browns. So I feel like you got to make a trade for that somehow. But
Go get Equanimous or something.
even that works. Yeah, have him as the mascot. But he was the other half of this elite club that was part of the collusion. That there was the whole scandal and everything. So
Shame.
it was hand in hand with the. Well, I can't even say the other team's name, but with Stefan, we'll say that. So he's the biggest drunk in the group, and on draft weekend, he could not stop talking about Travis Kelce. And one time said, "The thing about Kelce is that he is just like a wide receiver about 30 times during one evening." He went through all that, but then he was not able to get him because he picked 11th, so Kelce did not fall that far. But yeah, sounds like he had a fun weekend himself.
I was really hoping you were about to say he got drunk and picked, someone else instead.
Juju in the 4th round.
I don't think it was anything that bad.
No, but
well, I say that
imagine
actually.
talking
No,
about
I say that
Kelce all weekend to just get plastered and draft like I don't know anybody else.
His quarterback is Justin Herbert, who I love this year. Borderline top 5 fantasy quarterback, I think, is in his range of outcomes. He's not going to run a ton, so that does limit his ceiling a little bit. But I think that just going from Joe Lombardi to Kellen Moore is possibly the biggest coaching upgrade for any team, or at least for any offense. Just a total dud to a stud, just like that. And plus getting Quentin Johnston, who, even if we're not having him individually, he certainly is better than who I can't even think of their 4th receiver, DeAndre Carter, like someone like that. Just having an extra weapon. So offense is going to go off this year. I'm very excited for Herbert. I've been drafting him a lot in pretty much any format I can get him. He got Bijan, pick 11, which there's lots of controversy about Bijan. But I think given who was available, I think that was fine. I don't know exactly when this was drafted. If I'm assuming it was after the news that Cup may not play week 1, right? Like just a few days ago, right? Because Cup went in the 2nd round.
They drafted last night.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah. Cup not going to 11 makes sense. Yeah, Bijan. I mean, I know there's lots of controversy, but I definitely see the upside case with him. So I don't really have any issue with that. I don't love him, but again, I don't really see any main issue. One player I do have a major issue with is Najee Harris, and not just Najee Harris, but Najee Harris at 14th overall.
14, yeah.
That is brutal. I mean, the only thing he really has going for him is that he's probably going to get a lot of volume, which is fair, but he's proven that he is not very efficient with that volume. The Steelers offensive line is still not that good, and he probably is not going to have much of a 3rd down role because Jaylen Warren proved last year that he was better in the receiving game. So I just don't see it much of an upside case with him. I think if you got him in like the late 3rd or something like that, it would have been okay for like a decent floor pick. But at this point, I mean, he just needs to have an insane season for him to pay off that draft pick, and I just do not see that happening at all. And then James Conner as the RB3. Let me see when he was drafted because I don't love him, but if he was drafted late, it's not
round
that
6.
bad. Round 6, okay, yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I know, Zach, you said you like him, but I mean, kind of the same thing, but even worse. Like, yeah, he'll get volume, but he's going to be on a horrible offense with a horrible quarterback who they're never going to have many scoring opportunities. And he's kind of older, so like I wouldn't be surprised if he got traded to a team somewhere like the Bengals that could use like a pretty good backup, or the Cowboys, something like that, And obviously he wouldn't have as much value as a backup.
I will say the Cardinals' moves over the last like week or two or whatever have definitely impacted my opinion of Connor overall.
Yeah,
because how do you? I still like him, not as much, but yeah, you just a team that's like trying to lose.
Yeah, I mean, at least with Cole McCoy, like he's never going to scramble, so he'd be more likely to throw some checkdowns at Connor. But like Dobbs is kind of a mobile guy, so probably not going to get as many targets. And he's still just
Clayton Tune is as well.
A mobile guy, yeah. Whichever one of them ends up starting, I don't know. They'll probably both play some throughout the year. Yeah. And I mean, for all we know, Kyler may not play the whole year. So like, if Kyler comes back, then yeah, obviously Connor's outlook looks better, but we don't know when or if that even happens. The next running back looks like was AJ Dillon in the end of the 9th round, which that's a pretty solid pick. Again, nothing special, decent floor. He'll probably get a lot of goal line looks, but he's not gonna win the league for you or anything like that. But he's okay. And then take Bigsby. I do really like Bigsby, just for a little bit of standalone value. And then, if something does happen to ETN, which I know Zach, that you would not want that to happen, obviously. But if it did happen, I think he'd be more than capable of handling a good amount of work on a really good offense. And again, that's really the case for most backups is, the starter would need to get hurt. But for him, I think he's good enough where he can carve out his own role and be like a decent flex player from time to time.
Dude, it's eye test for him.
Yeah, he's
like just watching him this preseason. It's just like you can just tell he belongs. Like it's just I don't know. It sounds lame to quantify it in that way, but like there's just a lot of times when I watch football and it's just like you can just tell. Like, Tank is one of those dudes, man. Like he just gets it. He's gonna be good
for sure. Deion Jackson is the next running back. He's nothing special, but until the JT situation gets worked out, he's definitely worth stashing. I don't think he's going to be like the workhorse when JT's gone because Evan Hull, I think, is a better pass catcher, but he'll still probably have some value at least. And then Lenny, I mean, I guess he's worth keeping just to see if he signs with a team, and then if not, you just drop him. He's fine. I'm starting to get worried that he may not sign with anyone, though. That would suck because I've taken a lot of him in baseball, just thinking surely someone's going to sign him. But I still think he'll get signed at some point. I'm still thinking maybe like the Bengals or something like that, or maybe the Cowboys. But okay, so moving on to receivers. No truly elite receivers. First receiver is DK Metcalf, which I do like him, but relying on him as your one is a little not ideal, but it could be done. If JSN misses a lot of time, which I don't think he will, but if he does miss extended time, then that's pretty good. The thing with Metcalf, though, I really do like him, but like the gap between him and Lockett is just so big. I would just rather wait and take Lockett or wait even later and take JSN. Like they just should not be that big of a gap, in my opinion. I love Mike Williams. I know he always finds a way to get hurt, and he's frustrating for season long because he's really move or bust. But like I talked about earlier, I'm high on the Chargers offense, and apparently he's been getting more looks in the slot, which I think could be really nice for him. Get a couple more easy targets each game, instead of just always having to be a perimeter guy that just runs a bunch of go routes. Just give him some easy layup targets, George Pickens, next receiver. Not a fan of him personally, but I know into the 7th round, that's honestly not that bad. That's fine. I've seen him go a lot earlier in my home league. I know it doesn't matter, but in my home league, he went like 40th. He was a Steelers homer, but like still. But 83rd, that'd be 83rd. Yeah, so 83rd, that's not bad. He high upside. He needs to run some more routes other than just a go route, but maybe he's capable of it. It's just maybe the coaches aren't using him. And then Jerry Jeudy is the last receiver. Pretty thin receiver group, especially with Jeudy injured. He only has 3 receivers currently that are going to play for the first 3 weeks. But once Judy's back, that is a pretty good pick. a pretty good value. Actually, when was he taken? He was
8th round.
8th round. Okay, yeah. So 8th round, that's pretty good value, even if he misses a few weeks, I think. Yeah, so pretty solid group of receivers, and then David Njoku at tight end, just kind of in that range, of Ingram and Freiermuth. Like, he's pretty solid, good red zone threats, and just he'll get the job done. He won't kill you, but he's probably not gonna be a top 3 tight end or anything. But yeah, overall, I'd say there's some really high highs on this team, and then some really low lows in terms of just the value on some of the picks. This looks to me kind of like maybe pushing for a playoff spot, but I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't make the playoffs. So I don't know. Anything else for y'all?
Yeah, I hate the start. Bijan, Najee. Just I don't like going RB start a draft, especially Najee at 14, like we talked about already.
Rough.
Yeah, just really, really, just a high floor maybe is what you're hoping for with Harris, but he doesn't have the ceiling. I'm okay taking safe picks early, but I think that's a little too. Just his floor is too low. His ceiling's not high enough for 14th overall.
Yeah,
I don't hate the double running back start necessarily. Because there's so few true workhorses anymore. If you can corner 2 of them, like, I think that's an advantage. But you got to get 2 of them, and Najee's not one of them. Like we hit on. We were sitting on the board with Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs. So, like, if you were going to double running back start and you took Bijan at 11, I 100% would have taken Derrick Henry or Jacobs over Najee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I really think the way the game is today, you need an elite wide receiver in fantasy. Yeah. And you had some on the board. Remember, CeeDee Lamb went at 24. So he was there to be taken at 14. Amon-Ra was there.
Adams, yeah.
Garrett
Wilson.
Yeah.
You probably could have gotten Najee where you got DK Metcalf if you wanted him.
Yeah, I agree.
But I do like the Herbert Williams stack there.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I definitely want a piece of the Chargers offense.
Listen, the only thing I know is that Lenny's taking his time because he wants to make sure he lands somewhere where playoff Lenny gets to come out.
Yeah. I think I'll go to a good team. It's one of those 3.
What do you think? Maybe the Vikings, when they realize Alexander Madison is a career backup for a reason?
I also 100% believe in my heart that Fournette is intentionally just not doing training camp.
Well, he was never a guy who liked getting himself in shape anyway. So
no, that's what I'm saying is I think he 100% was like, yo, I got an out on training camp.
Take a few extra weeks.
Yeah, let's go.
Maybe. I mean, best case scenario, he lands in Miami when Mostert goes down in week 2 and Devon A-Chain can't hold up. He's 150 pounds.
Yeah, somewhere where someone's gonna score a ton because his only saving grace to me is gonna be touchdowns.
Yeah, for me. The Cowboys is like a perfect fit because they don't have any quality backups that are like a big body like that. That to me, I mean,
and Lenny showed
Jones would do that.
He showed he can do some catching too.
Yeah, I think teams like him on third downs in the passing game because he's a decent pass blocker. He's a decent receiver. He's somebody they can trust in those situations at least. And you know how coaches are. They like that. Even if he's not the most explosive option to put out there in those situations, he's someone that they trust. And that's something that they value a lot, coaches in the NFL.
I guess the last thing I'll say about this team is it feels like, Alex, you mentioned not liking the RB start.
I hate
the way they finished too. 4 your last 5 picks are RBs.
Yeah,
like that's almost perfect if you go receiver, or if Kelsey was there. I mean, it would have fit so much better it would have been a wide receiver
I
start.
love
true, yeah.
finishing my drafts running back heavy in the later rounds.
Mhm.
I don't want to do it at the beginning at all, but definitely not the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like if Bijan and Najee hit, then that's great, and if Connor hits, that's great. But like all those other 4 running backs are like you're pretty much wasted picks if the other guys are all really good. So yeah, that's a good point.
I don't think there's a lot of upside with the other running backs that they took, which is what
Yeah.
I want with my late round running backs.
Yeah, I'd say Bigsby has a good upside, but yeah, Dion
Bigsby
not
does.
really.
Yeah, you're right.
Dylan, no, and then Lenny, I mean, probably not, but like,
Even Deion Jackson, if he's starting the first couple of weeks, what's he really giving you?
And they
Yeah.
and
10
they like
points max?
they apparently can't even wait for fucking Zach Moss to get back.
God,
So
Zach
it shows you
Moss.
what they think of Deion Jackson.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's a good point. And it's half PPR, so wasn't Deion Jackson the guy who caught 10 passes in that game that he started last year? So you're not even getting the full reward of that either.
Yeah,
Who's up? Am I up?
I think this brings us back
Oh,
over to you, my friend.
All right, so this brings us to a team that I absolutely cannot pronounce, will not try to pronounce. So I'm going to use my friend here. This is the Bad Boys of. I don't know if you can hear that. Can you hear that? Does that come through the mic?
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. The Bad Boys of that name. They drafted second overall. This is Renard. They call him the con man. We've talked about him a couple of times already. But they call him the con man because he never accepts a trade if he's not 100% winning it. He's very scared of trades, and he never trades with league mates with similar NFL knowledge. But he loves scamming good players out of weak managers. So that guy that's taking naps, this guy's making trades with him. He's Mr. One and Done because he cannot win a match if the stakes are high. So he's basically, Kirk Cousins of this league. But at quarterback, he's got Lamar Jackson. He's my QB5. But I could absolutely see him finishing the season as the QB1. He has the best weapons of his career, offensive coordinator who's going to let him throw it. And no, that doesn't mean he's not going to run the ball as much as he has. He's not going to run less. It just means that he's going to hand it off less. Which is what my interpretation of it. Because he's still going to be dropping back probably more than he's ever has, which means he could actually scramble more than he's done in the past. And that's where he's the most dangerous. So I love Lamar this year. Easy top 5 quarterback. And QB1 is well within the range of outcomes for him. And running back, Saquon Barkley. I love Saquon Barkley, but I'm not a fan of drafting him at the 102. Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase were still on the board, and you went Saquon Barkley. Come on, man. But like I said, I do like Saquon this year. RB1 overall is well within his range of outcomes, but I just can't do it over those 2 wide receivers. Jahmyr Gibbs. I really haven't drafted a lot of Jahmyr Gibbs this year. His 3rd round, 4th round ADP has just been a little bit too much for a guy who's going to cede most of the rushing work and the goal line carries to David Montgomery. I mean, he's an exciting player and he's going to be fun to have on your team, but I think he's going to return closer to like 6th round value, especially in this league where it's half PPR. Absolutely cannot take Jahmyr Gibbs that high. Isaiah Pacheco. I liked Pacheco a lot last year. From week 10 through the Super Bowl, he averaged 12 fantasy points per game while scoring double-digit points in 10 of 12 games. He was a top 24 running back in 6 of the last 8. He's going to get the early down work. He's going to get the goal line work in an offense that scored 61 touchdowns last year. We saw how hot of a start Clyde Edwards-Helaire got off to last year because he was scoring so many touchdowns. Now Isaiah Pacheco is going to be in that role full-time for a full season, He's my RB21. I'm definitely above consensus on Pacheco. And then we get to another guy that I absolutely love. That's Roschon Johnson. I love Roschon. He's an excellent runner, but he's likely going to start the season as the Bears' third down back. But I do expect his role is going to grow from there. He could be the full-blown bell cow by the end of the season. I have him at RB39. Samaje Perine. I loved Perine early in the summer, like I talked about, a few teams back. But the miracle recovery by Javonte Williams has really gotten me off of Samaje for the most part. I do still think he's going to have a role. He's going to give you some standalone value, especially early in the season. And he's a great running back to have in the case.
I love Samaje. But where he got drafted here, I think it's really solid considering what you're getting. And I know I also agree with Alex that the miracle recovery for Javante's definitely cooled me off a little bit too. And I love Samaje, but those multiple ligaments are a bitch to overcome. And we saw J.K. Dobbins just struggle a ton with it. But once again, all indications are Javante's already doing better than that. So I mean, who's to say what's really going to go down? But I think to have Samaje that deep into your bench of running backs is really solid. And piggybacking off of what Alex said with Roschon, I love him as a player as well. Here's another guy that call me Chris Collinsworth. I just totally pulled his. Here's a guy. Here's another guy who eye test warrior for me. In the preseason, you could just tell that he's just so patient and natural and fluid as a runner navigating traffic. And then he even can make you miss. He can run through you. I think if Bijan wasn't a thing, Roschon would have been like a second-round pick.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, it's tough when you have a talent like Bijan who just consuming so many targets and so many touches, rather, not targets. But I mean, we talked about it. I know, Schultz, you mentioned you're high on Samaje too. It's like in those Sean Payton offenses, even when Kamara was the RB1 or the RB4, when he was having his best years under Sean Payton, they had a backup who was producing as well, who was a viable option in the offense. So I think Perine can fit in perfectly there. And as your running back 4, it's pretty solid.
And I'll also say with Perine, I'm still not 100% convinced that the Javonte injury is like as optimistic as some people are saying. Like I just listened to a podcast of Unestablished the Run. They had just seen Andersen on, and she's pretty much, that's her whole career, is specializing in football injuries, stuff like that. And she says she thinks that that it's a little, they're just being a little too optimistic based on all the historical data. And most historical data does say to fade or at least lean away from players in that situation, and more times than not you're going to be right. I'm not saying like the full fade Javonte or anything, or that Perine's an amazing pick, but I think that at least the first few weeks that Perine's going to play more than people are expecting. Like he might, I think honestly week 1 he'll probably play more snaps than Javonte. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But again, by later in the year though, he probably won't be as good. As Javonte will probably be more valuable, but it's pretty good running back group though.
It's the, like Drew mentioned, the Sean Payton thing. It's just the fact that I have full trust in him to utilize them both. And then you get standalone added on top of the fact if something does happen to the other.
Yeah.
So I'm fine drafting either of these guys at that point. The one thing I'll say about Gibbs, if it is kind of a detriment to take him that early, but if Gibbs gets off to a hot start because gets some extra targets and some production because of Jameson being out, and someone wants to bite on a trade, I would look into that. Even though we talked about trading's a little harder in redraft, but that's something I'd look into.
And just because he has the options where he can afford to trade away something like that and still be really good at running back. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if Roschon breaks out later in the year,
Right. But yeah, that'll take us into the receivers.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. Receivers, Garrett Wilson. Phenomenal talent. Now he gets Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback. Volume is going to be down, but the efficiency is going to be up. I got him at wide receiver 11. Brandon Ayuk, my wide receiver 29. He's a good receiver. Lots of target competition. Though he might be the most consistent producer week to week. If he, Debo, and Kittle, between those three guys, he might be the most consistent. Chris Godwin. I know we talked about him and Baker Mayfield earlier. I think he's going to be fine with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. Drafted a bunch of him in round 5. He's my wide receiver 17. Then we get to Zay Flowers. I love Zay Flowers. Versatile weapon, super explosive before and after the catch. I think he's going to get off to a fast start, and he's going to be productive right away from week 1. His ADP just keeps rising and rising, but I just keep drafting him anyway. Another guy who's on the rise is Sky Moore. I love Sky Moore coming out last year. He had a rough rookie season, and I doubted him there for a little while. But when we think about it, coming out early from a small school like Western Michigan and then being thrust into a high-octane Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes offense, it kind of makes sense for a guy like that to struggle to get going as a rookie. Now he's had a full offseason. He's had a ton of positive reports out of training camp and preseason. Looking like he's locked into a starting spot. So I'm back on the bandwagon for Sky Moore. He's my wide receiver 39. And then at tight end, it's Tyler Higbee. Could end up with a decent target share for, a lack of other weapons in that offense outside of Cooper Kupp. And then even without Cooper Kupp, because I think they're going to be without Cooper Kupp for multiple weeks to start the year. We'd like that for Higbee, but not a guy that I'm thrilled with having as my tight end 1. So I would probably look to see if we can upgrade that position. But overall, this team is all about upside. Lots of just dart throws, hoping that this guy hits his ceiling outcome across this roster. It's a little bit of a dangerous way to build, but man, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun if they all hit. But more often than not, these fun teams end up crashing and burning pretty quickly. Do I have the right read on this team, or do you guys disagree with that?
I agree for sure. Yeah, it's a really good team, but need a couple of guys to hit a ceiling outcome that probably isn't that likely, but if they do hit, they're going to smash.
Yeah.
I pretty much agree with you all over the board. I love Zay Flowers, and I love that you paired him with Lamar. I just love that Zay is a guy who gets himself open. I think we're in a league where that's a skill. It's a knack that you cannot teach, I think. Obviously, because you can't teach that quickness, that twitch, those are just that's genes. But I don't know. There's a layer to the game you can tell some of these guys have as far as the subtleties of just getting open. And Zay can get open, and that's a skill that translates directly to the league. And so I'm a big fan there. Also, I've taken the exact same path on Sky Moore as you, Alex, to where I was this guy's a bust. He sucks, whatever. But yeah, the more I've sat on it for all the reasons you said, but he also didn't play wide receiver until he got to Western Michigan. Did you know that? He was a quarterback and I think a defensive back in high school, and then he went to Western, and then they transitioned him his freshman season. So the dude's still practically learning to play receiver, and he's 22. So yeah, with the opportunity he's got, and the skill set. It's silly to give up on him yet.
I definitely think some opportunity was missed at the start of this draft. Going Saquon at 2. CeeDee Lamb was still on the board when you took Garrett Wilson at 23. I like Wilson at 23. I don't like where he normally goes, like top 13-ish. But 23, I like him there. But not when CeeDee Lamb's still on the board. And I think you guys were talking about Gibbs when I was coming back from my loss of internet again. I don't like him there in the 4th round.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we've gone back to a couple times now. But if this roster looks completely different if instead of Saquon at 2, you manage Justin Jefferson or Jamar
Right.
Chase.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, if you swap out Garrett Wilson for CeeDee Lamb, then it just seems like a home run. And he's so deep at running back too. We were talking about that when you were gone, Alex. But yeah, like you said, it's gonna be a fun roster. If everyone
It is
hits,
a
it's gonna
fun
be a lot
roster,
of fun.
definitely a fun roster. But sometimes the fun rosters aren't the ones that win the league, and a lot of times they end up at the bottom. But this one could go either way.
Ayuk is a guy at draft position I'm kind of out on too, just because the nature of that offense is like you just don't. It's so unpredictable.
Yep.
Yeah, he's gonna have his games where he's gonna get 25 points, but it's just they spread the ball too much for me to try and pay up that big for a guy.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, if you look at the guys on that team, you're not getting a spike week from McCaffrey, Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle all at the same time. So it's going to be hard to predict which one you should be starting and which week. I mean, that also makes it hard for Ayuk to hit his ceiling if he's having to compete with all those other guys.
And when
he does have good weeks, it's not going to be to where he could be if he was in a different offense.
And we're taking a guy in the 5th round who's 4th on the pecking order in targets. I would say even in targets, like because McCaffrey is still going to command more attention in the passing game than Ayuk at this point, I think. So you're looking at like, as far as opportunities in the passing game, you're talking Debo, Kittle, CMC, Ayuk, and you're taking him in round 5. It's high here. I don't know what his average ADP is, but I think his average is too high as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with the Ayuk pick, though. If you look at his next pick, which was Chris Godwin, I would definitely take Godwin over Ayuk.
I agree with that. Yeah. I don't even like Godwin that much, but I would still do that. Yeah.
And I think you definitely missed some opportunities at tight end as well. Even like an Njoku went, round 10 or so? You could have taken him instead of Higbee in round 11. I would have been a lot happier with that.
I think the one positive I do like about Higbee, in like the batch of tight ends of where he falls, is I think you're just going to see steady targets and steady opportunities for him, which like it's not sexy, but when you're getting that late, sometimes that's, like I feel like sometimes hitting a single at that point in the draft could end up being more like hitting a double, if that makes any sense.
I get it, but I want to take a swing at tight end if I'm going to take him that late, especially with the guys who are available on the waiver wire. I know we keep going back to that.
That's true, because instantly I don't think we talked about Dulcich.
I believe Dulcich is on the waiver wire.
Ferguson
Laporte is on the waiver wire.
Yeah, I'd say Schultz is probably the best waiver wire tight end.
Schultz, yeah, if you're looking for that high floor,
yeah, exactly.
Schultz is the guy you should have taken.
That's very true. Yeah,
Gerald Everett. We want a piece of that
Everett.
Chargers offense. Chigakonkwo, maybe. I don't know if you guys have taken him over Higbee. I've got him kind of right under the same spot.
I'd probably lean Higbee just because he's probably going to get more volume. And Just
Yeah.
slightly better offense in general.
What about
Higby
Juwan
from
Johnson?
a pure volume standpoint for me?
You guys
Juwan-
like Juwan? Kind of the same.
He's
feeling.
fine.
Yeah.
He's fine. I
That's
think
a
he's
guy
got a little
just-
overhyped, but he's still pretty solid. I think. Yeah.
I kind
That's
of
one
have
of those guys I just can't. I can't figure out exactly where I'm at with him.
Yeah. There's definitely hype on him though. He sounds like he's had a really good camp. Anything else on this team?
Yeah, I think that was it for you. So yeah, goes to our final team of the evening with Drew.
Mr. Irrelevant. We have the Breeze Knees.
Ooh, this is my favorite league personality or persona. I just need to preface this.
Yeah, so apparently Joe, he is said to be this league's Philip Rivers since he loves making babies. He's probably the most horny man in all of Iceland and the only man who could beat the Miles Sanders curse. Apparently, there's a curse in this league. Everyone that has had Miles Sanders in the league has been extremely unlucky, except for Horny Joe. They say Joe does not follow ADP or analysts and always follows his guts on players and is well respected because of this. He's never afraid to do trades. And yeah, I think that he's a league favorite as well. They say he's people like Horny Joe make the league's trade market go boom. So yeah,
I love it because I relate to I'm a big I will go make a move for my guy and overpay or draft way higher than consensus if I truly believe because I believe. So I love that. But Horny Joe is that's a top 5 all-time nickname anybody could have, period. Add horny to the beginning of any name and you're like, yeah, it's a good nickname. No, but his name's Joe. Find me a better name that matches just with horny better. You won't. It just sounds like, I don't know, the character in a fucking sitcom. Oh, that's just Horny Joe. I love this guy.
So he had the last pick in the first round. We'll start at quarterback. He has Justin Fields. He got in the 6th round, the very start of the round 6. I like Fields this year a lot. I think he's going to have a major second year in this new offense, especially adding DJ Moore is going to be huge for him. He has the rushing upside that, I guess only 2 other quarterbacks, him, Lamar, and Richardson would probably have, which is just huge. Especially, I believe this is a 4-point per passing touchdown league, I believe. So it makes it even better for him. CJ Stroud's the backup. Probably wouldn't have taken a backup if you already had Fields, given the shallow roster depth. But, it looks like from the lineup build, he has about at least one backup for each position. So he took CJ Stroud. He's probably a guy you could drop. I don't bank on him doing great in his first year in Houston. They have no real weapons, and I'm not sure how good Houston's actually going to be. So he may be throwing a lot, but I'm not sold that CJ Stroud's going to be anything reliable for fantasy this season. Running back wise, not really a 0 RB approach. He just went receiver to start the draft. So came around to the 3-4 turn. Ended up taking Travis Etienne and then Aaron Jones. I like both those guys at that range. End around 3, early round 4. I think those are both fringe RB1s. And also another, it could be steal of this draft, Jonathan Taylor in round 8. Yeah, first pick of round 8. I know he's missing the first 4 games. I think he'll probably end up being out of Indianapolis by the time he comes back. To get him in round 8, when I didn't look, but I'm assuming the other running backs are nowhere near his caliber when he comes back. I'm assuming when he comes back in week 5 that he'll be on a team where he will start and have bell cow work and could come in and make an impact pretty quickly. I don't know what his ADP is now since he went on the the PUP list and is out for automatically 4 games, but I think in round 8 that's tough to beat. Even though and there's also an IR spot that he is eligible for ESPN, so I think it's huge. He's not wasting a roster spot like another guy who I'll mention in a second. But so those are his running backs. He only has 3 running backs, which is a concern, especially when one is not playing for the first month of the season. Started his draft with AJ Brown at the 1-2 turn and took Cooper Kupp afterwards. AJ Brown for me is wide receiver 8. So guys like Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb, St. Brown, who were there, you probably could have ended up with them over who I would much rather prefer. AJ Brown's still very good. I just don't know. I think I would rather you pair him with someone else, especially with Cooper Kupp's injury issues. I think the first pick of the second round is a little too rich for him. Like Alex mentioned, I think he's going to be missing some time. And listen to a podcast today. You don't want to be drafting guys early who have injuries coming into the season. It's one thing if you have a history of being injured or injury tendencies, but to be coming in to where, it's September 3rd now and you have an injury diagnosis, it's not good.
Not only is he injured his hamstring earlier in the summer, re-aggravated it. Now he has to see a specialist for it.
I was going to say it's a setback. That's the worst part. Anytime anybody has a setback in the team is willing to come out and even say those words, it's bad.
Yeah. I've moved him out of all the way down the end of the 3rd round. He's my wide receiver 16 at this point. I've got him at 35th overall. And even then, I don't know how comfortable I am taking him at that point. Definitely not taking him at 13 overall where he went here.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do that. There's too much risk for. It's such a premium pick. It's such an important pick to your team.
Yeah,
and you're gonna risk it on that guy when there's CeeDee Lamb still there, and a number of guys, Garrett Wilson,
St. Brown,
Amon. Yeah.
If you start this instead of Brown and Kupp and go with St. Brown and Lamb, it's a completely different outlook. And then that makes the Jonathan Taylor pick later on.
Brown and Kupp at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Why roll the dice on an injured Cooper Kupp when you can take the next Cooper Kupp?
Exactly.
I think there's real concern for Kupp because, let's say worst case, just from his injury perspective, he misses 3 or 4 weeks. But what if the Rams are 1-3 or 0-4 by then? And I'm not saying at that point they would definitely tank, but start to be a little pessimistic. And then Stafford, he's been injured a lot, so if he gets hurt at any point, then Kupp is amazing, but a backup quarterback is not going to give him the production that would make him worth that pick at least. And I know it's obviously speculating injuries, but the bottom could fall out really quickly for Kupp.
Absolutely.
But
so now
I don't really see a floor scenario like that for St. Brown or CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, so you got the risk of Kupp by himself, and then you also add the team risk. You add the Stafford risk on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it.
Too many things, too many stars need to align there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so for flex, we have Christian Kirk. He was taken in the 7th round, the end of the 7th round. I mean, if Lawrence is going to pop off, we're talking about him having a big year. I think Ingram will be fine too at tight end. I think Kirk will be a decent flex option if Trevor Lawrence is going to succeed.
Both guys are going to be top 24 wide receivers.
Yeah, I think it's perfectly viable too if Lawrence is going to have that big second year with Peterson. The next receiver taken, this is to me maybe one of the worst picks in the draft just because he's out for 6 games. Jamison Williams, he was taken in the 10th round, first pick in round 10. In this league, I don't think he should be drafted, period. He's unlike Taylor, he is not eligible for that IR spot. And maybe you thought that going into it and realized, oh, he's not, I would drop him immediately. There's no way you can roster someone for almost half of the regular season, just to the fantasy regular season, I should say, and hope that he comes back. because I believe as a rookie, he only had like what, one catch? Is that
One
right?
catch. We're going to
Yeah.
hold a guy for half the season who's had one catch.
It's pretty wild. Yeah.
Yeah. I just,
And all the
And-
red flags are going up in training camp
in
already anyway.
the benches are so thin here that you just can't.
yeah.
You're going to end
Like
up dropping. You're going to get to week 4, week 5. You're going to have to drop him. Drop him. Bye weeks are going to be starting. Injuries are going to be piling up. It's just a waste of draft pick.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And like I said, maybe he thought that you could stash him on IR. Even then, I wouldn't take him in this draft.
I
even
wouldn't
if you
take the
could.
gamble.
Yeah. Yeah. Just not worth it for my liking. Isaiah Hodges was Mr. Irrelevant for this team. The last pick of the draft, 13th round. Fine. I don't trust him at all. I mean, and with this lineup
Yeah.
as it is, how he drafted, you're starting him in week 1.
Yeah, another
It's
guy
just-
who's easily replaceable on the waiver wire in this league.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, just real quick. I mean, actually, I'll let you talk about the different position later. I was going to talk about Kincaid, but I'll let you get to him and then maybe add on after.
Yeah. And you have the tight end position. You have George Kittle taking around 5. I think he's fine. When he's healthy, he's a stud. No matter of fact, I mean, we just talked about the 49ers offense. There's a lot of mouths to feed. The question is he going to get fed that week? McCaffrey's going to get his on the ground and through the air, but it feels like one of Kittle, Debo, or Ayuk will be out of luck in a given week. So he's fine, but I like Kincaid. He was taken in the ninth round as a backup tight end. I wouldn't touch Kincaid there, but I think if any, just going over past year's results with the rookies, first round tight ends as rookies, if anyone in a rookie class is going to produce, it's going to be a first round pick. So they love Dalton Kincaid. Buffalo moved up to take him. They jumped Dallas. With that said, I think I would rather it be 2024 when I'm using a pick on Kincaid. I think I'd just rather rely on him in his second season rather than a rookie.
To me, the going into rounds 9 and 10 and walking out with Kincaid and Jameson instead of like depth is the this guy was probably thinking about boobs instead of drafting. God damn it, horny Joe.
But it's a good point though, because you're gonna have Cooper Kupp sitting on the bench early in the year. You're gonna have Jonathan Taylor. Is he eligible for the? He's not eligible for the IR, is he?
He is.
He is. Okay.
No.
So at least you're not wasting a bench spot on him.
But you were at least losing the early draft capital for the early part of the season.
Yeah.
Right.
And then Stroud, whenever Stroud honestly just dropped him. I know we already talked about this, but the only time you would ever need to start him is if Fields is hurt or on a bye, and if that's the case, then your team might be screwed anyway. So there's no point keeping Stroud.
Even then, you're picking up Kirk Cousins off the waiver wire.
Yeah, exactly. There's
instead.
better ones on the waiver wire. Yeah, for sure.
This guy's just lighting picks on fire.
I'm telling you, he's just thinking about boobs.
Yeah.
And then
All right,
49ers.
that
49ers
was our
defense,
last one,
but-
wasn't it?
That was the last one.
Okay, here we go. We're gonna go around. Everybody is gonna give me one team that they think is gonna win, and then they're gonna give me one team that is their I guess dark horse, or maybe middle of the pack or lower that you think could take it home. And I will go first. And I think where was it here? I forgot. I am gonna go with one of my teams, the Gainesville Grinders.
You stole my team.
Yeah, I was gonna think of them too.
Yeah, it's the top to bottom. I think I mentioned this when I was talking, was that there was some moves you made that I would have gone a little differently, but I think from top to bottom you did the best job of not one, just not making any like critical errors, which like sounds like a insult. But a lot of times like you win your draft more by not fucking up than you then that is more true than the inverse, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get what you're
Sometimes.
saying.
So you did a fantastic job of just like keeping the steady course and playing the board pretty well. So I think I'm going to go Gainesville Grinders, and then so yeah, we'll swing it back through after a minute. But Hunter, who do you think's going to win?
Well, I don't want to just have everyone saying the same thing. I definitely think I have a different team that no one will say for this sleeper, but I think for this though, I also am going to go with Gainesville just because there's not any one true weakness. I think every other team has at least one area that they're kind of weak at, and I will say that like he's not. I don't think there's like clearing away the best team or anything, which makes for a more fun league. There are 3 or 4 teams I considered, but I would say it's probably the best. I mean, elite quarterback, some elite running backs, at least one elite receiver, a couple other pretty good ones, decent tight end. Like, there's not really any major holes, and I think, like you said, like you don't have to be amazing at every position. You just have to be not. You have to not suck at every position. So yeah, I'll go Gainesville Renders. My pick to win it all.
Yeah, my pick would be Gainesville as well, but I'm going to change it up a little bit here, and I'm going to take another team just to make it different. I want to see the Troutwood Twats have a chance. They got Josh Allen, Justin Jefferson. This is the only guy who had a brain when he drafted in the first round, taking Justin Jefferson at 103. I mean, if Dobbins hits and Javonte Williams is healthy and he hits, you got a really, really good team with Allen, Jefferson, Chris Olave, Pat Freiermuth. I think we talked about the Steelers' offense. He could be a top 8. Maybe he could get to the top 6 tight ends, potentially. Marquise Brown can give you maybe some volume in that offense. But I think if you churn those receivers that we talked about when we were covering your team, you can hit on some guys on the waiver wire that could really, really make a difference. You got Mostert in the meantime, who's going to get you through at least a few weeks as an RB2. Think this team could be a dark horse to get on a run in the second half of the season and take it down.
Well, that was going to be mine, so I'll give another team. I believe it was the first team we started with, maybe the Bogota Osos. They don't have a quarterback and they don't have a tight end, but we talked about the waiver wire. There's plenty of options out there. You can go out and get Kirk Cousins right now, start him. He gets Tampa Bay week 1. Tight end Dalton Schultz is out there. There's other options, but McCaffrey and Stevenson to start at running back is great. And then add in Waddle as your number 1 receiver. I think guys like Deontay Johnson are due for a big, or at least a bounce back season. Rashad White, pass catching running back. It'd be better if he was in PPR, but it sounds like it's him and Sean Tucker in the Tampa Bay backfield. Be interested to see if Christian Watson, he may be the X factor for your team if you could win. If he connects with Jordan Love right away and he could be a wide receiver 1 in Green Bay, I think you have a good option. Jahan Dotson's on your bench, Jalen Warren, Jackson Smith and Jigba. I mean, you loaded up at receiver and running back and then spend a random pick on defense, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because you skip quarterback and tight end. But I love everything else about the team. Just go out and grab a tight end and a quarterback, and I think you're going to be a contender right away.
Yeah, that team, aside from the obvious detriment, is loaded with talent. I mean, played the board so well. You know a team is good when, like, let's just take their, you could look at CMC, Ramondre, Waddle, Watson, Deontay, and there's like a legitimate case for a different order of how those guys could have gotten drafted. And that's how you know this guy played the board well. I'm with you there. This is a team that could easily do it. A sleeper team for me is it's the Trevor Lawrence team, and I just realized that I did that. I'm sorry, guys.
That was going to be my dark horse team. Still is. It's a good team.
It is. We've got the like we talked about, the reception monsters at running back. You can make a legitimate debate for every bench player having some sort of decent role. And I think that matters, because when you look at a lot of the benches in this league, we're easily ditching players. So once again, I think overall quality of depth is good. I think big year from Trevor, obviously, and you've got upside play at wide receiver past the first two dudes who I just feel super comfortable in. Pollard, running back 1, comfortable. I love McKinnon upside. Yeah, I think this team could do it.
Yeah, it's a good team. That was going to be my team as well.
What you got, Hunter?
There are a couple that I was thinking about, but I think I'm gonna go with again, I cannot pronounce it, but the Bad Boys of Reholt.
I keep getting sniped on teams here. What the hell?
I can pick someone else if you want them.
No.
But yeah, I mean, elite quarterback check, couple of really solid running back room. I mean, taking Saquon that early is just gross, because it could have had some other just better running backs, but still in his own right, he's still a really good running back. Wilson is a great receiver, and then just a pretty solid bench other than like Zach Moss and everything. If he could make a trade for one of those pretty good running backs plus Higbee to maybe get upgraded tight end, like obviously not someone like Kelsey, but like even someone that's like in the Ingram, the Pitts range, something like that, I think would be a really noticeable and what's the word? I can't think of a word, but a good upgrade. Can't think of it right now. I think that would put him in that upper tier because, he checks the boxes in most of the other positions. So I'm going to say that's my sleeper. Got to get a better tight end, though.
Greg Dulcich.
Yeah, or even pick him off the waiver wire. Who knows? Yeah.
Dalton Schultz. All right.
Yeah.
My third attempt at a dark horse team. I know we just spent a half hour shitting on the Breeze knees. But you could write a story where this team ends up being really good. You got Justin Fields at quarterback, Travis Etienne at running back. If he ends up getting more targets than he did last year, he could be an RB1 easily. I mean, this is a guy who caught 100 passes in college, so we know he has it in him.
Check out the world where, the Jags are way better, and they're going to be running games out to close them.
Yeah. He doesn't even need a ton of goal line carries to get touchdowns because he's so explosive. This guy could score touchdowns from 25 yards out. Aaron Jones, maybe the Packers lean on him with Jordan Love at quarterback. If Cooper Kupp ends up coming back from his specialist and he got the go-ahead, he's okay. We know what he can do. George Kittle can have spike weeks for you. A.J. Brown is a top 10 wide receiver. Christian Kirk, I think, is probably one of the better flex plays in this league. He's got big spike week upside with some floor in that good offense. 49ers defense even solid. I think you got some issues on the bench, but with the way the waiver wire is on this team, that's easy to solve. Hit some high upside. Just go get some high upside handcuff running backs. Go get Chuba Hubbard. Pick him up. Just do it. And then you got Jonathan Taylor. If he's a Dolphin in week 5, we got top 5 running back potentially in that offense. You could write a
Hey,
story for this team.
Horny Joe's ready
That's a
to
good
blow his
point.
load. Am I right?
Yes.
He waited all
Absolutely.
episode. I'll take Legion of Doom. I know we weren't as high on Chubb going fourth or Jacobs in round 2. I think they could still be solid running backs. I think you could still have 2 top 10 running backs there. You have the advantage in Mark Andrews at tight end. If he's not Travis Kelce, he won't be Travis Kelce, but he's still going to give you a competitive advantage there. And you're deep at receiver. I mean, yeah, DJ Moore and London will have to hit with their quarterbacks, but Tyler Lockett, Brandon Cooks are a couple who are just always slept on. They'll put up numbers. Jordan Addison's my favorite rookie receiver for this year. He's going into an offense that was, third in pass attempts last year, and now you're replacing Adam Thielen.
And it's going to go up.
Yeah, and it's, Dak is consistent. He'll be a top 10 quarterback. I think you need to go out and grab a guy like Anthony Richardson or, even Kirk Cousins. I don't know if Cousins has that upside, though.
At this point, Kirk Cousins is rostered by 7 teams in this league.
Yeah. we have spread around the 5 quarterbacks to about 10 teams. So
I'm just saying, I would still take Deshaun Watson over Cousins for any of these teams that need a quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Play the upside game with this league.
Yeah.
Just play the upside game with quarterback.
But Cousins still fine though, for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But no, I think Legion of Doom, London, DJ Moore, they have to hit. I think if they're even a high upside wide receiver 2, if that's their ceiling for this year, then I think this team's going to be pretty solid.
I'm really disappointed you didn't try to pronounce the beginning part of the Legion of Doom.
No chance. There, yeah, not a chance.
I think Hunter nailed it.
I lucked out. I think all of my names were I think I had the easiest set of names to pronounce.
Yeah.
So I think my favorite part here is that if we could legitimately, Alex, you wrote a story instantly about how that team could win it all. And I think we could do that for 9 to 10 teams here.
Yeah. Because
that makes for exciting fantasy football.
For sure.
I think every single one of these people made mistakes in their draft that can be exploited by the others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they're all on the same level for the most part, even though some like to believe they're not, but they are.
Hey, they just better be glad Maud Dave wasn't here.
We can't have an episode without Maud Dave.
No, that's why I did
for
it.
Bringing him up.
Yeah.
These guys don't know what we're talking about.
No, it's fine. Neither do the people listening, so it's good. But yeah, I think that's do we get a recap with these guys? I don't remember.
Yes, this is a twofer.
Sweet. I can't
It's
wait. That's gonna be a blast.
Yeah, they're doing.
We'll make sure you get the same crew because that way everybody gets to see the results.
Love it.
Thanks for joining in with us, guys. We've done a handful of these now. We always have fun. I know we take 3 hours to do it, but
we said we were going to keep it under 2.
We always say it'll be
I know.
shorter.
We said we'd go 2 hours. It's fine.
At least it's about an hour shorter than the last one. So
right,
we're making progress.
Yeah. At least it's also meaningful content. We're not just, stalling with saying the same stuff over and over.
That's right.
At least I think so.
So yeah, it's we just get into it and start talking, and it's fun. We always have a blast.
Yeah.
We are very appreciative that you guys picked us to do this because I know there are some other avenues to get that done. In the fact that, I mentioned earlier, that we are doing a league for people in Iceland is badass on its own, but then to find out what this league is and everything,
the most respected league in Iceland.
Right. That's a title right there. Fuck yeah.
We're going to dominate the Iceland market for personalized podcasts.
Hell yeah, let's do it. I'm in. That's it. I got nothing else.
All right.
Does anyone want to plug anything?
No.
All right. There it is.
Join if you played, well, actually, I don't know if DraftKings is legal in Iceland. It's probably not, is it?
Probably not.
No.
Give it a try.
If it
Get on a
is,
plane and come to Ohio. We know one of you is from Ohio.
Yeah.
If it is, join the yards per DraftKings league for week 1.
Yeah.
$5 buy-in.
Absolutely.
I'm sure Horny Joe wants to plug something.
I'm sure he does.
He's probably doing it right now while he's listening.
Adios.